If you'll rise for the invocation, Dr. Kyle Gibson will be the give the invocation, and stay standing, please, for Wesley Davis to give the pledge.
In your unfailing love, you will lead the people you have redeemed. In your strength, you will guide them in your dwelling. Most precious Lord, we are gathered here today to conduct your business. We invoke your presence here and welcome your spirit today in this chamber. Lord, we ask that you guide your elected leaders today, that their decision may be divinely inspired. Lord, may you lead them. Lord, may you guide them in all the decisions they make on this day. In the refrain of one of the great hymns, the words of the hymn say, lead them, guide them along the way. Lord, if you lead them, they will not stray. Lord, if you walk each day with them, lead them, Lord, lead them. Amen.
Amen. Please rise. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Any additions or deletions to the agenda?
Move approval.
Okay.
Second.
And, proclamations and presentations. First proclamation will be read by Sandra Bowden, Commissioner Bowden. Presentation proclamation designating April 2007 as Records Information Management Month.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Do we have someone that's going to... Good. No? Okay. Whereas the management of records and information is critical to every business organization and government agency in facing the complexities and competition, customer service, and globalization. And whereas technologies for storing information are expanding the amounts of information that can be acquired with increased longevity. And whereas control of records and information is necessary for reduction of risk and liability, as well as compliance and global standards. And whereas the citizens of Indian River County should recognize the importance and service performed by records and information professionals. Now therefore be it proclaimed by the Board of County Commissioners in Indian River County, Florida, that the month of April 2007 be designed as Records and Information Management Month in Indian River County, and Board encourages all citizens to recognize this event, adopted the 17th of April by all 5 county commissioners. Do we want our legal departments or our clerks to have this?
I think the clerk.
The clerk, okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The next is a presentation of a proclamation designated April 28, 2007 as the White Rose Luncheon Making a Difference in Our Community, and Commissioner Fletcher will present that.
Do we have Theodore Napoleon Floyd, Kevin Browning, and William Henry Wilson III? Are we all present?
Kevin is absent. He represented superintendent in Tallahassee.
Very well. We'll make sure he gets this. I have the distinct privilege and honor to read the following proclamation designating April 28, 2007 as the White Rose Luncheon Making a Difference in Our Community. Whereas the Links Incorporated is a volunteer organization of concerned, committed, and talented women who, linked in friendship, enhance the quality of life by enriching, sustaining, and ensuring the identities, culture, and economic survival of African Americans and persons of African ancestry. And whereas the Links proudly sponsors the White Rose Luncheon each year to raise funds for scholarships for African Americans and those of African heritage, and the outreach program supported by the affair is renowned for embracing the needs of minority students in the Tri-County area. The chapter's signature program is its High School Senior Awards Recognition event, which awards seniors for superior academic achievement. And whereas, in an effort to acknowledge young African American men making a difference in our community. This year's theme is Making a Difference in Our Community, and we will be honoring 10 young men on the Treasure Coast. And whereas from the Indian River County, the recipients of this honor are Theodore Napoleon Floyd, Kevin Browning, and William Henry Wilson III. Now therefore be it proclaimed by the Board of County Commissioners, Indian River County, Florida, that at the April 28, 2007 White Rose Luncheon, the 3 members from the Indian River County shall be acknowledged and honored for the unselfish giving of their time and talents for the betterment of all members of the community. Adopted this 17th day of April 2007, signed by all 5 county commissioners. Teddy?
Who's the Theodore guy? Congratulations. Who's the Theodore?
Do you want us to talk, speak?
Teddy, how about a few words and
Billy?
Hey, Joe, have him turn around and get a
Did I hear
picture.
that right?
Turn around.
Was that
Oh, yeah, let's-
Theodore Napoleon?
Teddy, go back and get your picture.
turn around. You're trying to get a picture here.
Napoleon was a little guy.
You're gonna need these.
Ready to go back to work? Hey, congratulations.
Good job, guys.
Thank you. Thank the whole commission. Thanks for God bless everybody.
The next is a
Shortest speech from
present.
Teddy I ever heard.
The next presentation will be by Commissioner O'Brien, and that's proclamation designating April 15th through the 21st, 2007 as Earth Week.
I believe we have some members of the green team. Nancy, you want to bring your team up, and why don't you introduce everybody real quickly here? And
Ladies?
This way first, Okay. Good morning, and thank you. We're very excited to be here. I want to introduce you to the core members of the Indian River Green Team. This is Barbara Brooks, Maya Conforte, and Eva Wacko. We have one core member that's not here today because she had a chemistry test, and that is my daughter Alyssa Wood, and I am Nancy Wood, and we are very happy to be here, and we're dying to hear what you have to say to us.
this is a proclamation designating April 15th through the 21st, 2007 as Earth Week 2007. Whereas Earth Week 2007 activities and events will educate citizens on the importance of acting in an environmentally sensitive fashion by recycling, conserving energy and water, using efficient transportation, and adopting a more ecologically sound lifestyle. And whereas Earth Week 2007 activities and events will educate citizens on the importance of buying and using products least harmful to the environment. And whereas Earth Week 2007 activities and events will educate citizens on the importance of doing business with companies that are environmentally sensitive and responsible. And whereas Earth Week 2007 activities and events will educate citizens on the importance of supporting the passage of legislation that will help protect the environment. Now, therefore, be it proclaimed by the Board of County Commissioners of Indian River County, Florida, that April 15th through the 21st, 2007, be designated as Earth Week 2007 in Indian River County. And the Board urges all citizens to set aside this week for public activities promoting preservation of the global environment and continuing the Decade of the Environment. Adopted the 17th day of April 2007, signed by all 5 county commissioners in Indian River County, Florida. Nancy?
Thank you very much, and I want to extend an invitation to you and to everyone in Indian River County and wherever this TV station gets to go. On the April 21st at Riverside Park, under the Oaks, we're going to have a large Earth Day celebration. We expect 3,000 to 5,000 people. We'll be giving away 600 trees. We have some guest speakers. We have some bands. We have over 75 vendors that are all earth-friendly, and I hope to see you all there. Be happy to give you a tree. And thank you very much. We really appreciate this.
Nancy, what are the times of the event?
Oh, thank you. Yes, it starts at noon and it ends at 6 p.m. and it is free and open to everyone. And we'll also have some really cool stuff for the kids. So everyone, we've got something for everybody, and we want everyone to come.
Great. Good.
Thank you.
Thank you, Nancy.
Thank you. We want to shake your hands.
Congratulations. Thank you so much for what you do.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you so much.
Stand up again, team.
Thank you. Approval of minutes of the regular meeting of February 13th, 2007. Have a motion second. All those in favor say aye.
Are we going to do the workforce?
presentation.
Workforce?
Oh, I'm sorry. You're right. Well, we got the minutes done early.
There you go.
Presentation annual report for the Workforce Development Board of the Treasure Coast. Sorry about that. I apologize.
That's okay. There for a minute, I thought you were just going to go right by me. Good morning, Chairman Wheeler and Commissioners. Thank you so much for the opportunity to present the Workforce Development Board's annual report. You should have a copy of the written report in front of you, as well as one of our labor market information tools, a new tool that the state has put out this past year we thought you would find interesting. It's always a pleasure to be here. And we continue to provide a variety of workforce services to residents of the Treasure Coast. The Career Center on Old Dixie Highway in Vero Beach offers Indian River County residents comprehensive workforce services. At the center, adults and older youth can find a job, obtain assistance with career planning, complete assessments to determine their qualifications for careers in demand in our local area, receive a scholarship to attend school, participate in workshops that prepare them for a job search, employment, and life, and/or they may receive assistance with support services such as tools necessary to do a job, reimbursements for transportation to job training, or referrals to child care and other essential services that remove barriers to their participation in work or training. Employers can advertise a job opening through the center and receive referrals of pre-screened job applicants at no cost. The center also may provide employers with interviewing space, specialized job fairs, and customized training for an employer's workforce. In our last complete program year, with a budget of approximately $8 million in federal allocations and competitive state grants, we served 29,657 job seekers and 1,832 employers through our career centers, plus 532 youth ages 15 to 21 through our youth programs. 91.5% of the funding paid for direct services and support to residents, and the remaining 8.5% was spent in administration. 5 continuous years of declining federal funding is taking its toll on the workforce system, making it difficult to staff career centers and serve our customers. As a result, the Workforce Board is being forced to make difficult decisions. In the coming months, it will be necessary to scale back our career centers and limit, or in some cases, even eliminate services. In an effort to continue serving our customers, the Workforce Board will provide services and programs more frequently through computer networks and internet-based programs, public-private partnerships, community-based agency partnerships, roving customer service teams, kiosk, and mobile services, such as the mobile services we recently established in Felsmer. The board is adamant about finding cost-efficient ways and new partnerships to serve our customers. For example, this year, your Workforce Board was honored by both state and national awards for an innovative partnership with a private employer. This partnership was a win-win scenario for both the business and the workforce system. Late in 2005, due to declining funds, it was necessary to close the Indiantown and Port St. Lucie Career Centers. Aegis Communication Group, a frequent user of the Port St. Lucie Center, volunteered to house the Career Center inside its operations in Port St. Lucie. Aegis provides the space, utilities, data lines, and reception for the center, while the Workforce Board provides staffing and supplies. Through the partnership, we've been able to continue providing services to Port St. Lucie residents, and Aegis cut their costs for recruiting, lowered their unemployment compensation claims, and gained new notoriety as a community partner. We continue to work with our economic development partners, and I have Helene Castletine with me here this morning from your own Economic Development Division. And we work with them to advance the work of Florida's Research Coast Economic Development Coalition, a regional organization promoting high-skill, high-wage jobs for the Treasure Coast. In addition, we are working with our education partners, the Chambers of Commerce, and other community-based organizations to promote appropriate strategies for addressing work readiness, education, workforce housing, and literacy. We value your interest, your participation, and your input into our work. Please take time to visit your local career center. And I wish to thank Chairman Wheeler for his participation on our Workforce Consortium, and Commissioner Flesher's involvement at our Workforce Board meetings is greatly appreciated. On that note, I will conclude my report and answer any questions you may have.
Thank you. Any questions,
I do.
Commissioners?
Just real quick. Great presentation.
Thank you.
With school fixing to come to an end for the summer, is the Workforce Council, are they working on anything perhaps for some of the youth as they get prepared for real life but not quite graduated from school yet, the opportunities for employment?
Right. We have a youth program, and during the summer months, we partner with Indian River Community College, and we provide 3 programs at the college. Depending on the youth's age, what kinds of programs they've been through before, they can participate in those programs. And they are hands-on career exploration type programs and work readiness workshops that do prepare them for the workplace. It's a great program. We have served thousands and thousands of local youth through that program. It is the only program we will have available, other than we have a manufacturer's academy in the St. Lucie County School District, and we will be working with 30 students there this summer in specialized internships with local manufacturers.
Great.
So that's what we'll be doing. Any other questions? Thank you.
Thank you very much. The next is the consent agenda. We've done the minutes, so.
Mr. Chairman, I think E has to come off consent.
Yes. Any others? We have item E.
Also, I should have brought this up earlier in the meeting. Did anyone want to report on the meeting that we had at Fellsmere? We had a meeting on Friday, and we're going to give the commission a report on that, if we could add that to the agenda.
You want to put it under administrators matters or community development?
Yes, community development or administrators, doesn't matter.
Okay, either one. I'd like to add that then.
Okay, I'll second that. Have a motion
Move approval as amended.
Thank
to
you.
put it under.
Yes.
Okay. Any further discussion? Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion carries 5-0. Item E off the consent agenda. Any other items anybody like to remove?
Agenda.
Oh, we did?
Oh, well, that was the agenda.
As
Excuse me.
amended.
Okay. Move to approve the consent agenda as amended.
Second. We have a motion second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion carries. Item E, Will?
Mr. Chairman, Jacqueline Reasons is a commissioner of the Enterprise Zone Development Agency, and she had compiled 3 unexcused absence, which is a basis for removal, but the removal can only occur after she's notified of that fact and has an opportunity to have a hearing before the board prior to removal. I'm not sure if Ms. Reasons is here or not, but I was told third hand that she may have a request to present to you.
Good morning. I'm Jacqueline Reason, and unfortunately, due to scheduling problems, I am unable to attend the Enterprise Zone meetings as I had hoped to be able to do. What I am requesting is that that you consider appointing another representative of the organization that does have the ability to attend the meetings in place of me. So that's my request this morning.
Sure. We can't do that to the appointment today, can we? I mean, I don't have anybody. What I'd like, perhaps, Mrs. Reasons, if we could, just to your organization to put forth somebody that would have the time to be able to serve in that capacity.
We can do that.
Yeah, there's an application. If you would, just call or give me your number, and I'll have staff call you, and we'll work it out.
Okay. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, this said something about a hearing also that we needed. Do we need to do anything else or just accept this?
I think this was the hearing, and her request is not to be reinstated, but to have another member of her organization
Move to
appointed
approve
the
consent
board.
E.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion carries. Under public discussions, we have a request to speak from Joseph Paladin, Chairman of the Growth Awareness Committee regarding charter government Fellsmere annexations.
Good morning, Commissioners, Mr. Chairman, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Joseph Paladin, the Chairman of the Growth Awareness Committee, and I'm going to speak briefly on the charter government and also on some of the annexations that are being brought forth in Fellsmere. I'm not here really to speak against or for the annexations in Fellsmere. I'm just here to offer my opinion and give you some ideas on how I feel things can be brought forth in an orderly manner. First of all, let me touch base on charter. Charter in its purity, if it was set up and looked at as we're looking at it, you almost find no way that it can't work. One of the things I like for everybody to think about is just winning the charter, just having the charter approved or disapproved. A victory may not be the right way to go, either way, whichever side you're on. For instance, Mr. Williams, bless him, he's been coming here for 6 or 7 years, and I respect him. He's a very smart man. He's from Hollywood. They have a charter there. He won that battle, but they lost the war. So I don't really think that Hollywood is an example of what we're trying to do, and nor is what Mr. Wheeler's trying to do with his, or Mr. O'Brien, whoever wants to take credit for that charter, is trying to bring forth. I'm just saying that I would like to, at the end of this discussion, leave you with a way that if whatever we bring through and how we bring it through, I'd like to adopt it and bring it through different than any other county or city has ever done it, in accordance with everybody, and make it be the best thing for the people in this county. I don't think that the charter is bringing the charter forth and assuming that all the cities and all the municipalities are going to give county home rule, which we're not asking for, but that's not going to happen. I don't feel that the cities are going to let us do that, so I think we need to work closely with all the cities, including Fellsmere. Now, Fellsmere has a different interest, and Vero Beach, who's done a heck of a good job over the years, look what they have. I mean, that's why they're interested in how things go forward now. And so is Sebastian, and so is Indian River Shores, and everybody that we're dealing with out there. Orchid Island, they're all doing a great job. I mean, we didn't know how good of a job Orchid Island was going to do until they actually got a chance to show us. So we need to treat everybody equally, even though Fellsmere probably has the most to gain and the most to lose because of the position they're in. And a city that's developed west of I-95 is different in its overall development on the barrier island or east of I-95. So, we have to kind of go along with planning that those city directors and commissions are working with. Now, having said all that, I'm going to offer up some thought process on what we're not trying to do and what I think we should be trying to do for future economy in this county. And one of the things is the landowners out there. I have a great deal of respect for landowners who have been here 3, 4, 5 generations. I find it really uncomfortable position to be in sometimes, to stand up here and make a decision, or to try and tell a landowner that has his grandparents buried here and his parents are going to be buried here and they've been here for 3 or 4 generations, what they can and can't do that might harm their overall future of their family's well-being. I find that a difficult position to be in, and I feel uncomfortable without incorporating them into the decision. And that's one of the things I'd like to do here today. I'd like to tell you that this is about landowners, this is about their rights and what they deserve for putting in the time and being the last guys out here still growing food and still trying to do citrus and still trying to raise cattle and still trying to do the things that are probably going to wind up being more valuable in the future than even maybe a place to live. So we got to take their future into our decisions, which is what I'm trying to do. I can't see the landowners letting Fellsmere complete the annexations they've started with the Fellsmere joint venture, the Fellsmere East, and the Sun Ag. And if it's not incorporated, and if they have nothing to gain, the other landowners, I can't see them letting that go through without them being a part of it. And I can't see them going ahead and blessing our charter if the charter doesn't make some provision or explain to them in detail where it's a benefit for them to hang on and be the last few landowners out there that are still producing a crop of some kind. I think it's important to bring all these issues up, as I'll bring up through my short presentation today. Furthermore, with the annexations in Fellsmere, I said before that there was legal ways that we could control that or never stop the annexation, basically, but we can't control changing the comp plan or the way the land use. I'm not so sure that maybe we put all of our effort into that fight. Jason, I'm not speaking for Jason or Fellsmere. I don't mean to do that, but I don't feel that they're willing to come off of that 17,000 acres, which probably Mr. Wheeler knows more about than me. And if they don't, then I think that we need to either find a way to help them develop it with the accordance of our LDR, so it's developed under the same guidelines and the same levels of standards of developments that we've been doing in the county, because that's what we've all prided ourselves on over the years. And I think we need to find a way to work with them and make it more beneficial to be a partner with us instead of an adversary. And I think we can bring that forth by the end of this presentation. Also, I would like to bring enough things forth so the landowners out there would see that being a partner with a county in the future and staying a part of the county, it would be beneficial to them. So I think instead of competing or instead of trying to stop annexation, I think the county's in a real good position to be very competitive and do as good or a better job providing for needs in the future as Fellsmere can. And I think if we work with Fellsmere, the things they do can complement us and the things we do can complement them. Now, having said all that, I got a couple of maps I want to put up on the Elmore. If I can have a little help here from somebody. If Stan's back there, he's usually pretty good at this.
And everything else.
And that's another point I'll bring up, our staff. Okay, this is a picture of our urban service line in the county as we basically know it today. Most of you are pretty familiar with this. And we're going to lighten that up a little bit. Good. Okay, this is Fellsmere up in this area here. This doesn't show any of the annexations that are currently under annexation. This shows the city of Fellsmere. It shows the Anson annexation. It shows the annexation that's going on across Highway I-95. But basically, it doesn't show the 18,000 acres that's presently has an application in for annexation. So this is what our urban service line looks like. This is what our land use map looks like. This is what Fellsmere looks like. And this is Vero Lake Estates up here, by the way. So having seen that, let me put another map up there. Okay, this is a map that I think most of you have seen before. and it was created by our staff. This shows in the red, the bright red here, the annexations that are presently have the application to go in the annexation. And that's comprised of basically three groups of people: Fellsmere Joint Ventures, Fellsmere East, and the Sun Ag Corporation. And the Egan family is very much a part of this.
And the Corgans.
That's correct. And so this gives you an idea of the magnitude of land that is going to be annexed.
And Graves Brothers.
Pardon me?
And Graves Brothers.
Yeah, and Graves Brothers partially, but there's a lot more Graves Brothers that can come in under the next annexation.
Sure.
So the blue would be what would be being proposed that could be annexed soon, that there's been inquiries of interest. And also there's other inquiries out there, from what I understand, that are even larger than this. What I'm saying is, I think we're going to have a hard time, and I don't know if we even have the right to try and undo this 17 or 18,000 acres, which I thought would have to be done in order to assure the way of life we know in Indian River County. I'm trying to think of a way if we can compromise and make that work in the future with a complement to what we're going to do in the future, that maybe we won't spend all of our energy trying to fight this, and maybe can make a reasonable deal that would make some sort of sense. Now, having seen that map, the next map I'm going to put up here, I'm going to ask you to give me a few moments to explain before you panic. Okay, this next map was created by me, my staff, not staff in the county, but my staff. And for the benefit of taking all the blame, I call this the Paladin Plan. If it's accepted in any way, shape, or form, I'll be happy to change the name to the Wheeler Plan or the Keating Plan. But at this point,
Are we going to change some of the streets too?
whatever. At this point, it's the Paladin Plan. Let me explain it to you. Okay. Number one, I figured the best way to control or can see how the outcome of a development occurs. In the past, I've often said, I felt the only piece of land I didn't worry about is a piece of land that I was developing, because I knew exactly how it was going to turn out, I knew exactly how it was going to look, and I felt confident that it would never be changed because it's developed. So I didn't have to worry about what was going to happen in the future. Well, in a larger sense, a much larger sense, this is what started me towards this. Now, I didn't just think of this last week or last month or yesterday. I've worked on this off and on with my Growth Awareness Committee and with myself for a couple of years. And, you know, it never really made the proper amount of sense, and I never really felt that it was the time to bring it forward until now. Let me explain to you what I'm thinking about. First of all, I'm talking about moving the urban service line out to I-95. I'm talking about making that zoning inside that green area PD. Anything that's done inside of that green area would be a PD, which also includes ag PDs, which I'm currently in the process of doing some and having some more brought forward. I think ag PDs is a very good thing, and I think it's a way of preserving a lot of our land and maybe keeping some of our land in agriculture. But anything that's done in that area would be a PD, which means the county commission, the planning and zoning board, staff, everybody would have their input as to roads, infrastructure, how we design it, how we build it, what the developer has to give up, all the negotiating power. I think that's an important aspect of this thought. Now, my thought process, to go a step further, would be to have the zoning in that ag PD, besides the ag PDs we have in this PD zone, not the ag PD, but the PD zone, at 1 unit per acre. Okay, now, I've said that. I think to go on further, like Fellsmere has brought forth in their new LDRs that I've read, they're going to cap everything at 3 units an acre. They're starting with that. I'm saying that, okay, maybe we cap this area over a period of time at 3 units an acre. But the only way you can get the other 2 units an acre is to mitigate an acre of land out here that we determined through the Carl Group was the essential lands to be preserved and saved. There are more valuable being saved than built on. Wetlands, uplands, where animals preserved, things like that. And that gives value to some of the landowners way out here by Blue Cypress, like Presley Ranch, things like that, future value for their land, because that would be part of the mitigation bank, which means they could keep their land forever and still get paid for those acres. As they paid for those acres, any development rights that were out there would be taken up. But they could only get their up to 3 units an acre by buying an acre for every unit after one that they wanted. It's really a way of using the developer to really pay for future development. He's not only paying for infrastructure, but then our master stormwater plan that we're talking about designing out there, water storage, surface water storage, all these things are important to the future of the county and the people that are already here. Actually, new development would be helping pay for that. Actually, new development would be helping provide that. And that's what we all are worried about in the future. So that's step one. Step two, to go a little further, I'd like to move the urban service line again. This orange area, I think we need a commercial industrial area or zone in order to have a balanced economy. Every economist I've listened to, every place I've gone and listened to economists speak, have said anybody that relies on construction or housing alone, sooner or later is doomed. Sooner or later it's not going to balance. So either you out-tax the people, there's no balance of economic force, there's no money coming into the area, you can't be an island. So you have to balance the economy with commercial, industrial, retail, that type of growth. This would do that. And this goes even further. So we rezone all this orange area into CI, or commercial industrial, light industrial. And in turn, by us rezoning all that land, any landowner out there probably automatically becomes a millionaire, because we're giving his land about 10 times the value he'd have under 1 unit per 10 acres or whatever it is out there. And I think that that's a good point to make for my next step. For doing this, we're partners with the landowners now. We've done a very beneficial thing for them and the county, basically, in the future, because now we have somewhere to develop commercial industrial. I've heard all along from Chamber of Commerce, Economical Development Committee, we have no incentives. We have no chance of going out and getting Honda to come here and build their motors for Piper and have Piper build their jet here. We have nothing to offer people that build something that could be shipped all over the world anyway. Here's what I say, because we've done such a good job working with the landowners, that the landowners in turn give us a bank to attract more business that will give their land even more value. So if he has 500 acres, he puts 10 of his acres, he puts 10% of that 50 acres in a mitigation bank to the county that the Chamber of Commerce could use as an asset, or the county could appoint a committee to use as an asset. And then we can go up north to Ohio or Indiana and say, okay, you build a Honda motor. How would you like to build it in Vero Beach? By the way, Vero Beach. If you all think that the growth is not going to come back, and you think that Vero Beach isn't going to be putting more pressure on you in Indian River County, you're kidding yourself. I was watching a national TV show about 6 weeks ago. Now, normally I watch, the local news, Channel 10, and when they talk about how great we are, it doesn't shock me. I was watching this movie, or this TV show, because Ted Turner was going to be on, and he was going to discuss how in the future buying water rights and controlling water in the land would control the land and the value and your wealth in the future. He said this is the biggest thing he's ever done. So I wanted to watch that. So they put a little blip up on the screen, after the commercial, next thing coming back. The number one place to live in the United States in the future is Vero Beach, Florida. I said, whoa, is that our Vero Beach? You got to be kidding me. So we watched it. So with getting recognition like that, you can't expect us not to have even more pressure on how we develop out this county in the future. You got to consider that pressure is good, but it's going to be bad, because we're going to be under pressure to do the right thing. Okay, now having said that, say now you go up to this up North County, you bring this Honda dealership in to build motors here, and they say, well, we can't go down there. Land's so much cheaper everywhere else. We ship everywhere in the country. Say, hey, I got a bargain for you. If you give me a letter of credit, an intent letter, saying that you're going to build your factory there, what size piece of land do you need for your factory? Well, we need about 20 acres. Tell you what, you build the factory on that land, we'll deed the 20 acres over to you, so the land's free. What do you think of that? Well, you got my attention now, because with the land I own, I can get financing anywhere in the United States of America to build a building on it. So now you say, furthermore, you want more incentive? I got it. We'll finance your impact fees over the next 5 years. We're financing something we don't have. We're financing something we're not going to get. We're not giving it away. We're letting them finance it over a period of 5 years. With incentives like that, we give our chamber, we give our committees, whoever we want to appoint, we give them tools to work to attract people to come into the area. Now, when they come into the area, you say, Honda uses belts, they use this, they use certain fans, whatever parts they use. Then other companies will come in the area and they'll buy an acre of land and build a building. They'll put in an industrial, some buildings and put in some more buildings and businesses. And now, affordable housing. We can address affordable housing because we're going to make houses that are affordable, more affordable, because these jobs will pay $15 or $20 an hour, not $7, $8, or $9, or $10. So now all of a sudden you can afford a $160,000 house instead of a $120,000 house. That's an advantage to bringing in more jobs for the county, making houses more affordable. Go a step further. The way to balance your economy, you need to think of ways to bring in money from other areas. You can't just spend money you make here. We complain about people coming here from out of town, big builders, big developers, and saying that they're going to build this and they're going to take all the money out of town. Well, we're going to say that, okay, you're going to come here and work, and you're going to sell stuff to people in Ohio, you're going to sell stuff in Pennsylvania, they're going to send you the check, you're going to pay your employees here, we're going to have more money here. We have more money here to balance our economy. The best way to control taxes on on individual homes and individual property is to have a secure economy in business, industry, commercial development. And that has to be in a zone. Now, I don't foresee this just being a place to do businesses. I think we ought to put the same guidelines on a business commercial zone as we do building subdivisions. I mean, I'm talking about nice entries, water treatments, plants, green space, parks in the middle of it, something that people can look at and be proud of, not just asphalt and metal buildings. I'm talking about a committee to approve design. I'm talking about things that when you bring people down here and you show a business owner that he can build his product here, ship it out of here, show him where he can buy a house more affordable than in New York or Connecticut or someplace like that, I think you got something to work with now. I think that's important. So I think that these ideas are out of the box a little bit, maybe a lot. These ideas aren't against charter government, because I don't think charter government's against any of these ideas in respect. Mr. Wheeler would have to answer that, of course, or Mr. O'Brien. I think these ideas could be incorporated so that the landowner out there that is in the area that's maybe not being annexed, he may be saying, Jim, we're pretty damn smart. We're staying in the county. I think it's an advantage to stay in the county. I think that we're going to do pretty well here. Fellsmere says, okay, you're going to do that. You're going to have a business zone. You're going to have jobs. Okay, maybe we can work together and we can do something with affordable housing in Fellsmere. So maybe they voluntarily say that they're going to work with us like we're working with a commercial development and say when they rezone all this red land that we have, maybe part of that, they'll pull a piece of that out for affordable housing by giving Habitat for Humanity free land, by letting them come in and build houses that people that have lesser paying jobs can afford. I think it can balance out the county. I think it can make the people that are behind charter, the people that are behind annexation, the people that own land, the people that want to stay here, the people that want their kids to stay here, the people that have been here for 3 or 4 or 5 generations, the people that are concerned about the water, the people that are concerned about surface water storage, the people that are concerned about what we're going to do for water in the future, reclaim water, reuse water systems. I think this makes it all more possible. I think this is a way that can bring the county together with all the cities and municipalities, have us all work together, and give us hope that we can do something that no other county's done. We got 19 other charters in 19 other counties. Most of them, we don't want to be anything like. All of those municipalities have charters. Nobody has the opportunity to do what we have the opportunity to do. We can argue, we can disagree, we can go our own separate ways. A bunch of separate victories isn't good planning. If we fight and one guy wins and one guy loses, the guy that loses, he loses. The guy that wins, he goes on. Next time the other guy wins. That's not planning. Planning is a master plan. Planning's looking into the future, like Dr. Cox would say, 7 generations. Planning's not looking 20 years down the road. We can do a lot of things with this plan if you tell me it has some initiative, if you tell me that you're behind it. You can go ahead and set aside a time period to get the infrastructure in this dark green area, to where maybe for the first 3 years you only do ag PDs at 1 unit per 5 acres. So the guy that doesn't build for the first 5 years and get his money out, he knows he's going to get more money in the future because he's going to have higher density. That gives us time to put the infrastructure in. There's a lot of things you can do with this, with the business zone, with the commercial zone, with the new zoning as PD. Everything that comes in goes through the county. There's some thought processes here. There's some things that could happen, and I don't think that this deters charter. I don't think it deters the people that own land from being panicky and wanting to annex anywhere in order to just have an opportunity to do something with their land in the future. I think this makes it real clear that we're all working together and that we're looking out for the future of the people that have been here for 4 and 5 generations. Those people are very important to me. I have a lot of respect for those people, and I want to do everything I can to keep those people in the county on board. And I want to be a part of their team, and I want them to be a part of our team. That's basically all I have to say. I think I've said enough, and I welcome any questions from the commission. And if anybody in the audience had anything to say, I'd ask that the chairman let them speak. Thank you. Any questions from the
Well, the
commission?
only question, I think we should have put this under presentations instead of public discussion items, but
I didn't mean, I apologize for taking over 3 minutes. I should have stated that before I started.
I didn't pick up on that. I've got several comments. Anybody else want to comment? I'll save mine till last.
I just have some, not knowing where the annexation issue is going to go, where the charter issue is going to go, I do believe there's something that you hit on that I really think that we're being short-sighted if we don't try to institute it, and that is the transfer of development rights or development credits, very similar to what they've done with the Adams Ranch, or trying to do with the Adams Ranch. And if we've got a municipality that is wanting some densities, we have a community that also is wanting to transfer those densities, and we did that with a $12 million purchase. We're doing that with a land acquisition advisory committee that's going to look at another 1,000 acres, and that's all areas that I don't know where it's going to wind up in the future, but it's certainly areas that we are putting a value on those density credits, or those densities, to the point that we're really considering using tax dollars to pay for them. And it may behoove us to somehow, and I guess I'll throw this out either to the commission or to the staff, but if we have a municipality that's interested in receiving some densities, and we have a community at the same time in certain areas that's interested in reducing some densities, that quite possibly could be something that we're being short-sighted if we don't address and try to implement a policy to accommodate that. That's just really my only comment.
Okay. Anyone else?
Mr. Chairman, I would like to say I probably agree with most of what Commissioner Davis just mentioned. I think we do need some type of transfer density rights program. My opposition to the current wording that talks about new villages and stuff was it gave, in my mind, a tremendous bonus density for those transfers, and I was opposed to that. But if a landowner has his current zoning, be it 1 to 5, 1 to 10, 1 to 20, and we do have a municipality such as Fellsmere that does want to increase their population, I think instead of rezoning more county land to accept that, if we have a willing partner in Fellsmere, I think that'd be the logical place to send those units. and let them, develop according to their staff plan and what they want to do. So I don't have any problem at all. Again, I concur with Commissioner Davis that I think we do need to have a transfer program in place. I'm just real opposed to if we're just going to ramp it up and give huge bonuses just to do it. But I do think that would give some of those landowners some additional value to their land and let them maximize the potential for their land ownership. I like the industrial park idea, though it looked like most of that, Joe, was a lot of the Corrigan property.
Yes, sir, it is.
And I know a lot of that is environmentally sensitive, so the vertical section there that was more Corrigan, if anything, I like to reduce that and take your horizontal section, make that, kind of wider along the State Road 60 corridor. That's something, that's just worked out in the details. But
I agree with that. I didn't, like I said, I didn't do much research as to where the environmental lands were.
I would fully support the creation of a 1,000, 2,000 acre industrial park. I think we desperately need that for good, solid growth. So it kind of wraps up what I feel. I think we do need a transfer program. I think it should be consistent with the current zoning that's on those lands. I think Fellsmere would be a good recipient or receiver site for those units, and I do support finding some industrial land somewhere.
Thank you, Mr. O'Brien.
Commissioners, don't hear anything?
Well, this is the first time I've seen or heard this, and so I reserved judgment yet. But I appreciate you coming forward and putting time and work and energy into it, because we don't need to polarize anymore anything, and we do need to work through this and to get on the other side of it pretty quickly.
And let me say, this is really the first time that anybody in the county has seen or heard of this. I haven't shared this with anybody in the past.
Yeah. Joe?
Mr. Paladin, very impressive presentation. I just want to ask you, which color represented the properties that you own out in Fellsmere?
I don't own any property out there.
And which properties are you developing out in Fellsmere?
I'm not.
So why do you do this?
I think it's the right thing to do. I feel it's right. I know that a lot of people might find that hard to believe, but I just feel it's the right thing to do, and I'm compelled to bring it forward. I think it's something that we can incorporate into the charter, or I think it's something we can incorporate into Fellsmere's annexations, and I think it's something that the county can do initially to bring the whole county with all the municipalities together instead of somebody winning and somebody losing.
Well, I'm very impressed with the concept, and I would like to review it a little further. I believe it gives us an opportunity to have economic development laid forward, an opportunity that does not exist right now, providing for a corridor with the transferred densities, and while maintaining the lifestyle that we have here in Indian River County and preserving what we have grown to enjoy in Indian River County while having more economic development opportunities. Thank you.
My comments, if I may. First, you just gave quite a presentation and kind of blindsided the commission. I would have liked to have had this material in advance to look at, discuss with staff. I think staff should have had an opportunity to look to it. I think this should have been placed someplace else on the agenda so we could discuss this in an intelligent fashion rather than sitting here kind of on the fly throwing out ideas on one sales pitch. Also, you don't have to worry about me asking it to be named the Wheeler Plan. The other thing is the big price to pay to incorporate lots and lots of acreage out there into commercial industrial, and also the expansion of the acreage in Fellsmere. I think that's a huge price to pay when we're gambling and we don't even have a bird in the bush, let alone in the hand, like you mentioned, Honda Motors. And it's tough to compete with other states right out of the box because of our tax structure and insurance in the state of Florida. So I think it's kind of pie in the sky type thing when we start talking about it in this fashion. We're not talking about 17,000 acres in Fellsmere. We're talking about right now on the table, which they have applications for, over 20,000 acres. which creates urban sprawl in itself. Also, the PD at 1 unit per acre, we got about 7,200 acres out there. That could equate to 7,200 more homes outside what currently is the urban service area by reducing the density or increasing the density by at least 5 times because it's 1 unit per acre. The landowners can, under our comp plan, we have opportunities to expand and do things when projects are brought in a fashion and looked at. We also, if I'm not mistaken, we have processes set up now for density transfers, depending on the project, where it's at, moving densities around within a project. Yes. And all of this can be expanded on. The other thing is when we look at this acreage outside the urban service area, I don't think necessarily it's just dealing with local people. I think we're dealing with Wall Street on this. We don't have general developers here much anymore, like some of what you've done. You come in and you put 50 or 100 homes in and build a small subdivision. We have nationally traded companies like Lennar, Centex, DeVosta, and they come in and buy up thousands and thousands of acres and build huge developments. And I think that some of these developments, that given the opportunity and the electorate to have the opportunity to vote on some of these when they come in like this in the urban sprawl or urban expansion, I think the voters in this county are intelligent enough to make those decisions and also have a say in what their future would be. And that's why I like the special act originally and now charter government. The other thing is that I think that I don't know so much that, quite frankly, and again, we're on the fly here, Joe. It's not something I've had any time to think about, neither has anybody else. You're the only one that's had an opportunity to really weigh and measure the weight of this. So we're just sitting here getting a presentation and off the cuff making comments. So we're really speaking about gut reaction to this. I don't think it's thinking out of the box. I don't think it's not like being like other counties. I think it's putting us in direct competition, quite frankly, with Palm Bay and Port St. Lucie and what's happening south and north of us by going in and coming up with this huge plan that is completely a giant compared to what our comprehensive land use plan is now. And I think we've got overall a good plan. I think we've got good staff, and I think we've got a lot of these mechanisms in place if the county has, with our comprehensive land use plan and LDRs. Basically, my biggest problem with this is just kind of, just on the fly, giving a gut reaction to it. So,
Can I respond?
Certainly.
Number one, you're right. We're dealing with Wall Street. But, maybe if the landowners had a value there that they knew they had in the future, they'd be more apt to sell off some of their land and keep the most of their land to keep farming on or growing citrus on or farming cattle on. And maybe they would sell it 50 acres or 100 acres at a time to developers like myself and developers that live here in the county that can afford it. Maybe they wouldn't have to look to Lennar and Centex and DeVosta. Maybe that wouldn't be their only option if we gave them other options. I think that's an important thought in what I tried to do here.
And I think the big word there is maybe. It's almost as big a word as if. And, and that's a possibility, but we don't know. But I know what's happened all around the state of Florida. I've lived here for 37 years, and I've seen it happen. And I think that it's not going to happen here if we don't get a hold of it, we're sadly mistaken. When somebody comes in to buy 50 or 100 acres and somebody comes in like Lennar or DeVosta, I heard 2 months ago or 3 months ago, Lennar walked away from deals they had because of the slowdown and left $500 million on the table. They lost it. But they'll come back, and I don't know whether the way they work, they've got deals with these people, they'll come back in a year and a half and probably buy that property for 25 cents on the dollar. We're dealing with big business here that people are setting in New York City or Los Angeles, probably never been to this county. They're CEOs, and they're looking at the bottom line. And that's the problem that I have with all these national developers.
And I agree with you. I've always supported that, and you know that. But I think if we all work together as a team, as a family, meaning the municipalities, the people that live here, the commission, the local builders and developers, and the people that have proven themselves here, and we all work for the same thing in unison, I think we can compete with big business. I think we can compete with Wall Street. I think with the help from staff, with the help from our financial department and county administrator, who's as good as any that I know, I think we can compete with development. I think there's ways we can do it.
Yep.
I think that if we don't, we're kidding ourselves that they're not going to come back when things pick up again. I think this is the time for us to team up, go back to back, form some ideas that have the landowners on our side, us on their side, and we all work together. I just don't believe that's impossible. And I'm not speaking against charter, but if you look at history, passing charter the normal way in other counties, it hasn't worked.
Well, I don't know what their objective was with the other 19 charters and what promoted them to do that. So I don't know whether they worked or not because I don't know what their objectives were. The other thing is there's been a lot of dialogue back and forth over the last few years with everybody, all the players. And you know, let's keep in mind it takes two to tango here. And the problem we have with any divisiveness in a community or in a family is when two people just can't seem to find some common ground. And we live, fortunately, as I've said before, in a society, in a country where we've got the right to decide these issues without going to war. And that's what makes America strong. So, but anyway, I appreciate your time. I appreciate the effort you put into that. And I saw Stan taking some notes, so these are probably some things that we'll be looking at. And I'd just like to say that, you know, this was such an in-depth presentation that I would have liked to have had some advance notice to know what we're talking about so I could give you something other than just a gut reaction to what your proposal is.
Right, and I didn't do that for any negative reason. I just didn't want any input on my thought process. I worked on this, and I felt I just wanted to bring it forward and see what the impulse was of the public and yourselves. And if there was any reason to believe that there was support for this, or that you could see a way you could incorporate this into your future thoughts, and we could stay on the same team.
Commissioner Wheeler, can I comment?
Yes.
First of all, you know, the commission does set policy, and I'd like to say that I wouldn't do anything on the fly, but one thing that has been noted is that we are very short in industrial land for this county to create jobs. And but before you enter into something, putting it all on Route 60, keep in mind that there's things like the interchange with short trips that might be good to do. If you were to do something like that, give staff time. If you were to consider it, as far as charter government, I don't have anything to discuss in charter government. And if there's environmentally sensitive land, maybe the trade-off, we need to look at that if you were to go down this road, I would say don't do it on the fly. It takes a lot of research, a lot of workshops. We have noticed that if we are going to attract jobs, this county does not have a large industrial area of 2,000 to 3,000 acres, which might be needed, but that's your decision. And you know, the transfer densities has been a concern with the village concept. If people want to continue down that, we'd probably, the only way to keep it alive would be change that, but not to the extent it has been in the past. I think that if we are going to do industrial park, we are going to have to, some Wall Street firms do create jobs, big jobs in manufacturing, and we may want them as investors in the community. And so it's a mixed bag when you look at all that. It's very hard.
Thank you, Joe.
And Mr. Chairman, I wasn't asking for a vote here today or for you to do anything on the fly. It wasn't my assertion. You know, I had a list of things that this thing would address, I think, overall, and one of the things I would never consider going forward with this without either you appointing somebody or somebody appointing somebody to consult with a consultant or put a team together to look into it. I just think that maybe it would be something that we would consider that we can incorporate into our future, and I think it would satisfy.
Well, you know, and what you say, Joe, is the other thing is there's some good ideas. And no matter who presents what, there's always good ideas and bad ideas from somebody's perspective. And but as in everything else, the devil's in the details, and that's where the rubber meets the road, is when you get down to the details.
And I agree with that 100%. Speaking of the devil, you know, we were into the Devil's Workshop the other day. We went to Palm Bay and had a joint workshop, and you know, I've spoke against them in the past, saying that they're overdeveloping and Brevard didn't have any control, and that Fellsmere was going to be like Palm Bay, and you know, we've discussed that. All of us have. And one thing came up last week. Another thing we got to look at in this, which I had on my list, we got to readdress impact fees on commercial development and industrial development. Our impact fees have risen out of whack because when we were approving impact fees.
We're going far afield here. Let's start a whole new subject. We got other business to take care of, and impact fees, I agree. We've talked about that. But, I don't want to start getting all the county business and not getting through the agenda today.
Okay, I thought we had a light agenda, so I.
It was.
It used to be, yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you for your courtesy.
The next item is, oh, I'm sorry. Yes. It's, Commissioners?
You're the chair.
Well, I let everybody speak, so.
George Christopher, Vero Beach. There certainly can be no quarrel with what Joe said. We should plan for the area outside the urban service line, and that will occur. We went through a year-and-a-half visioning plan process, and that concluded focus inside the urban service line. At some point, we have to, and sooner than later, if people want, develop the plan for outside the urban service line. That's going to take a year or two effort. It's a major effort. The charter has nothing to do with that. Charter just says that when the plan is finally developed, the voters will give the final okay on it. That's all it says. As far as industrial is concerned, the charter doesn't in any way change even the process. That will continue to be a vote of 3 commissioners.
That's
I'm
not the
sure
way I understand it.
Pardon?
That's not. I thought that a change of intensity.
Intensity, well, you have not decided whether to include intensity. Those that are supporting charter for the IRNA believe intensity should not be included. But that's your decision. You have intensity has been in brackets in every draft. Density is different. If you don't include intensity, then you don't change the process at all as it exists today for industrial development. It will be 3 commissioners. But the main point is there has to be planning, or there should be planning for outside the urban service line. Charter doesn't change that. Charter just says what the process is going to be, who's going to approve it. Thank you.
Thank you. As long as this is open, is there anyone else that wants to make a comment? Seeing none? Seeing one?
One more.
Thank you, Joe.
John Higgs, Indian River Shores. I'd like to make a brief comment. Of course, there has to be long-term planning. It has to be done by people who have interests of the entire county in mind, which of course brings us to why we need a charter. 2 small examples of why we need a charter. Part of Fellsmere's annexation is land right next to the gun range. I am proud to be a registered user of the gun range. It is my understanding that proposed to put houses there. That is incompatible use. It will mean that you or Fellsmere will have a lot of very unhappy voters, or the county range will have to be closed. Now, maybe it should be closed. I wouldn't, that's not my view. But the fact is, who controls this?
Mr. Chairman, if I could just, and I hate to interrupt, but isn't that land already inside the urban service area, and would that be affected by the charter or not?
Not by the charter.
Thank you.
But we are, as you're well aware, Leslie, we are commenting on the comp plan change amendments to the city of Fellsmere.
I'm just learning. I'm learning new things about the charter. One of them about, I mean, to me, it's still like moving. But I just wanted to point out that the charter would not affect the annexation for the 300 and plus acres in the northeast corner of 95 and 512.
It depends on what is in the charter. The charter can affect various lands that hasn't yet been annexed. But this is an example. It's just a simple example of what charter government can do. It can put control of land decisions like this that affect everyone who live in the county in the hands of a body that represents everyone who lives in the county. That's very important. So my recommendation is that that you go forward with the county, with the charter thing as quickly as possible. Once that is done, the control will be set. Then comprehensive plans can be developed for land in the future. Obviously, the land out there is going to be developed someday. The question is who controls it and how. Do we want a small group of people, I think it was 317 people at the last election, control what happens outside the urban service line in this county? I think that's not good. I think we need charter to prevent it so that a proper plan can be made. Thank you.
I understand where I think probably the example used with that acreage is that's already in the city of Fellsmere. They're in their comp plan, and all of that's would not, as I understand, fall into the charter because. But what we are doing is because of the gun range and the industrial up there, we're commenting on that at the Treasure Coast Regional Planning because we've already that was zoned commercial industrial with the county because it's at a major interchange, and it was annexed into the city because they wanted to put residential there, and our staff was not in favor of that. So that's the main reason that property was annexed, changed from commercial industrial to residential. And I think their plan is like 300,000 feet of commercial, probably some type of a plaza or something like that that would support. But the other thing with the gun range, and it concerns me because I think the gun range, I think Commissioner Adams, Fran Adams was the main thrust behind getting the gun range in. That gun range had not in that particular location, but a gun range for Indian River County had probably been in the works for 20 to 25 years before they finally got a place where they could have it. And now it's going to be encroached upon, and I'll guarantee you, if there's residential up there, there are going to be a lot of complaints and a lot of pressure to close that range. Well, I would not want to see that happen.
The only point I meant to make, Mr. Chairman, is that if we have a charter, then all the people who have an interest in how land is developed can have a voice. We know that an intergovernmental agreement will not work because it requires the consent of every parties, including the party that we're trying to control in some way. So move forward with the charter, consider other things later.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, well, just to wrap it up, I mean, we heard one individual talk about how it would not change the intensity, the charter wouldn't, and now another individual speak about how a charter would change the density. And so I mean, we're trying to I'm not going to say nail Jello to a wall again, but we are, I mean, we're like chasing a moving target in this instance. And it's a good point about not having 317 people make the decision for the future of Indian River County, but at the same time, I'm not sure that 80,000 people at one time is appropriate either. And I'm ready to move on.
Well, I think probably what you're saying, nailing Jello to the wall right now, is probably appropriate because we haven't got a final draft.
Right.
And a charter can be almost anything as long as it doesn't violate the Constitution or general law.
And I'd like to
get a final draft and we make the final decisions at a final public hearing. We'll know what we're dealing with at that point instead of people saying what they would like to say on either side to promote their position. We'll have something concrete to look at.
Absolutely. And I think that the only way to characterize a charter appropriately is not that it can be anything. A charter will be anything.
Well, I don't agree with that.
And what time frame, Ross, when did you plan to have the final draft?
I'm hoping that we can have a final draft by the 15th of May. I am going to, in fact, I requested from Darcy this morning to put that on the agenda under my matters on May 1st so we can decide to pick a date for a public hearing on the charter if everything runs according to plan and the charter is completed. So the commission will decide on hopefully May 1st if everything's ready, whether we want to schedule a public hearing for probably the 15th of May. I think we need 14 days to advertise an ordinance.
Do we have any other workshops scheduled?
No. we'll have a public hearing, which will be like a workshop, except we can take action on specific changes to the charter at that hearing, and whether to adopt the ordinance or not, just like any other ordinance that's been adopted. And I think in what Wesley says, I think almost any ordinance we get into that has any controversy to it at all is a moving target until we get down to the final thing. Many ordinances have come here, and the final public hearings is where the changes are made to move it forward.
How many public hearings are you going to have?
Well, we've had 3, 4.
No, after the final draft.
After the final draft, we'd have one, which would be the adoption of the charter, or unless there's something here that you want to send back and it takes longer, but that could be the final hearing, depending on what the commission decides.
Do you think that's appropriate for something so significant, to have one public hearing and then move forward with changing the form of government?
What would you suggest, Commissioner Fleischer?
Well, I'm concerned. I just heard something during a presentation that might be of interest, and I wanted to ensure that we had the opportunities to see other possibilities before we move forward with changing the manner in which we do business and affect every citizen in this county.
Well, that's fine.
I would envision some additional public hearings, advertising, and awareness, so that people know what they're doing should they be called to go to the polls.
Well, what was suggested or showed us by, I almost said Commissioner Paladin, Mr. Paladin, can be done under a charter or under our current form. Things aren't changing much. But anyway, we're getting way off so I'm sure there's going to be a lot of dialogue about this in the future.
It's just interesting how Mr. Paladin's presentation turned into a discussion on charter government.
Well, I'll tell you, most of the discussions I've been in recently have turned into charter government discussions.
Just about every day as well for me.
I would like to have a time frame out here, what we're talking about.
We'll settle that next on May 1st when it's on the
Do you
agenda.
have an idea of what you are proposing? I mean, just like this was sort of, out here, we might have vacation plans, we might have other things. I would like a little lead time here before I have to vote.
They'll all be done at regularly scheduled meetings, and I'm one person. I'm going to bring this back May 1st to set up a public hearing if the charter draft is complete, and then at that hearing, decisions will be made to change the charter, keep it, throw it out, pass it, whatever.
Okay, so you're saying that the vote on charter is going to be when, in your mind?
Well, let me repeat. On May 1st, I have under my matters
Okay.
that we set a public hearing to adopt the ordinance for charter government, which we need 14 days, is my understanding, to advertise for a public hearing for an ordinance. That would bring it back on the 15th of May. On the 15th of May, the charter would be here for discussion and public input on that particular ordinance. And it would be up to the commission at that point in time what happens to the charter. Whether we change it, whether we make additional changes, whether we put them, whatever. And we would move forward at that point. It could be voted on to move forward, or it could be killed at the 15th if everything works well.
Mr. Chairman.
It's all up in the air at this point.
Well, I want to plan to be here on the 1st and the 15th.
You should plan for all the meetings.
Well, particularly for those.
Mr. Chairman, could I just say my preference as to what happens? I think with the public workshops, we can't take action. So we've heard some dialogue, and the draft has been moving along, but we haven't really kind of gone line item by line item voting, yes, as a board, we want this in, or no, we don't want it in. So my recommendation is we do schedule a public hearing where we can take action. We will go through it line by line, and as a board, we will vote on every option in there, either yes or no, yes or no. Then we will schedule a second public hearing, which would be the final adoption with those changes in there that we voted on as a board. And that way, not only would the board have a chance to go line by line and make our vote, but then when we come back for the second public hearing, the adoption hearing, we would have a very final draft that not only the board, but the citizens and municipalities, everybody involved, would be able to see, okay, this is the final version, and then we would vote to adopt that, yes or no. So that'd be a second public hearing where we could take action.
I just want to bring forward that we've had 2 public hearings and they've been very lightly attended. And I think people are busy this time of year, and this is a huge, huge undertaking and change for the way we do business from now on. And the other thing, if you're proposing in your thought process to have a vote in the summer, I think that would really be questionable.
Well,
so I'm just trying to figure out what the plan is here, because I've not been privy to it, and we've not talked about it, and things are already moving along. So I'm just trying to pull it out of you.
Well, to begin with, as you're well aware of, it takes 3 votes to make any plan. I have my opinions. Secondly, we've had 3 or 4 public workshops, not 2. And when this comes back, and that's where all this discussion should take place, is when this is in front of us, we have a working document, and we can decide what we want to do with it. And that's all I'm asking. I mean, we're not following any different procedure with this other than extra workshops that we do on any other ordinance.
Okay, I'm just trying to pull out of your time frame in your mind what you're thinking.
Well, as far as I can go is asking for us to set a date for a public hearing, have the public hearing, and the commission will make choices, 1, whether we're going to have a public hearing, and 2, what will happen at that public hearing based on how at minimum of 3 people vote.
Okay.
Okay?
You got it.
Thank you, Joe. We'll move on to general services, acceptance of change order number 27 for the new county administration building, and that's found on pages 300 through 303.
When did you want to do Joe's Fellsmere update?
Oh, that's down. Did I pass that? I'm sorry. Yeah, let's go back. In fact, I'm sorry, Steve.
Get out the room.
I had all my other notes here, and that note got lost in them. Stan, would you like to give a update on what we discussed Friday in Fellsmere?
Sure. Stan Bowling, County Planning Director. There was a meeting on Friday the 13th between representatives from Fellsmere and the county at the City Hall of City Fellsmere. From Fellsmere, there was Mayor Sarah Savage and City Manager Jason Nunemaker, City Attorney Warren Dill, and City Planning Consultant Rochelle Lowendales. From the county, Chairman Wheeler, County Administrator Joe Beard, Assistant County Administrator Michael Zito, County Attorney Will Collins, and myself. Annexation issues were discussed, and Fellsmere representatives indicated that they would be willing to negotiate an interlocal agreement regarding potential annexation lands if the charter government initiative ceases. They also indicated that lands that are under current application for annexation, including the Fellsmere joint venture and Anson properties east of I-95, would not be on the table, so to speak. That the only negotiations for an interlocal agreement would involve potential future annexation lands. They also distributed a map. I'll just go over that with you briefly, prepared by City of Fellsmere staff. Just to orient you on the map, bring that up just a little bit. State Road 60 down here toward the bottom, I-95 here. The area in yellow here, the current Fellsmere municipal boundaries. Areas in red are existing annexations, including the Fellsmere joint venture property and Anson property on the east side of I-95. Those are considered by the Fellsmere representatives essentially as a given and would not be part of an interlocal agreement. They outlined potential lands for annexation, which includes conservation lands under the ownership of St. Johns River Water Management District, other lands going down to State Road 60 west of I-95, and then lands north of State Road 60, essentially west of 74th Avenue. That would be this green line here, up to the county line. Just again, just as a generic, sort of planning area. Whether there are plans to annex those areas or not, again, that would be potential
standpoint
annexation.
74th Avenue again?
Over here. I'm sorry, maybe a little bit off the
82nd Avenue, or 90th Avenue.
No, 90th Avenue here's Vero Lake Estates.
Right.
This is 90th Avenue.
Right.
Right here. This would be 82nd Avenue. We're dealing with a really big scale here.
Right.
74th Avenue would be here.
Right. Okay.
Stan, while you're pointing, the little N up there, I think, is the river border for Sebastian. What you see to the right in the lighter area is the city of Sebastian. Put it in perspective to what Fellsmere's, the difference in size.
Right. Well, yeah, again, the yellow is the existing boundaries, and the red are what annexation applications that are already in.
Point to the north marker up there, if you would.
Sorry,
all the way over to, right up there. That's the river.
Correct.
And then that's the city of Sebastian.
Correct. All this is the city of Sebastian, and here's the St. Sebastian River.
City of Sebastian goes further east or west than that.
Right. It comes. Obviously, the city of Sebastian is a little bit west of the intersection of 510 and 512. At the meeting, pros and cons were discussed, and both sides agreed what would be beneficial would be to have a joint workshop on annexation issues between the Fellsmere City Council and the Board of County Commissioners. And my understanding at the end of the meeting was that Jason Nunemaker would be making arrangements for such a meeting. I'd probably be in the city of Fellsmere, and it'd be best to get the full council and the full board together to discuss the issues.
Thank you.
Okay. Joe, have you come up with a date yet for a possible workshop with them or meeting? I guess not a workshop, but a meeting, joint meeting.
We've suggested a workshop at this time, and Jason Nunemaker has not gotten back with me with the date yet. He said he's going to get back, and hopefully for our next meeting we will have a date, I'm sure.
Okay.
And they've also offered, we've talked about having it at Fellsmere. They've suggested Sebastian on here, so they're very open to where we can have the workshop.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Stan. Now the next item is acceptance of change order number 27 for the new county administration building, found on pages 300 through 303.
Good morning. Steve Bloom, project manager for the county administration project and a few others. We're here today to try to go to the end game here for the project. As you know, it's nearing completion. Move-in is scheduled, completion is scheduled for June 30th, and move-in is sometime within the following couple of months. We felt that we had several issues pending, which are contained in this change order, and the intent of this change order is to bring the project to conclusion. And it's formatted in a little bit of an unusual way, but in the past we have always funded extra costs, if you want to call them that, from our owner contingency. The owner contingency is comprised of savings from cost reduction items, material substitutions, number of things, and then there's also the element of sales tax reduction through owner direct purchase projects. So in the past we have had, we were able to raise $913,000 from both of those sources for our owner contingency, which is our tool to pay for these things. And we have funded to date about $606,000. This has been an ongoing process, as you know. Over the period of time that the project's been going on, which is 19 months now or so, as far as construction, it's evolved from 2 buildings on one site to 5 buildings on 3 sites. We have the supervisor of elections and animal control and facility management on 43rd Avenue. That was a decision made by space needs and access on the first floor. At the existing site, there was no room. The EOC, Emergency Operations Center, is now reaching conclusion on 43rd Avenue, and this is a result of a grant provided by the state to build a freestanding EOC, which was originally in Building 2. Anyway, as we went through these changes, we did things like remove the EOC from Building 2, second floor, We also took out supervisor of elections, and we took out, we added a second floor to Building 2. The result of that is that we've got 23,000 square feet of future space that we can use. And never once so far have we added any dollars, asked for any money above the guaranteed maximum price. So now we come to you with a couple of issues that we need to resolve. Not issues really, just work to do. We've got, as we moved out the EOC out of Building 2 and made some other changes in the building, this began a process of reevaluation of the technology set up in the buildings, the electrical circuitry regarding uninterrupted power sources, and many other details. And then came the audiovisual systems that we wanted to incorporate into the building to make it a state-of-the-art facility. It also came to the fine-tuning of the furnishings and how they fit into the spaces. The result of this is a number of changes that are contained in this piece of work here. The total is a large figure. It's $1,263,000 additional dollars that we're asking for. Now, of that, we still have $306,000 in our owner contingency, which we plan to exhaust as part of the payment for this work. The actual work includes three somewhat different groups of tasks. One is a series of 7 change orders for things such as modifications for a new conference room in Building 2 to take the place of our current conference room A. There are a number of things of more or less significance in that. But then the second item, total for that is $244,000. The Section 2 indicates modifications to the electrical, data, and communication systems to accommodate owner requirements in the buildings. And this is where the changes to the electrical systems and the data and all that came in. It involved a very long series of meetings to try to coordinate and understand the needs of the owners, the needs of the users, and we finally now, after all this time, have collected this into prices that we believe in. And this has been an exercise of working with Turner Construction, who has been extremely good to work with. And then there's a third section, which is kind of miscellaneous changes, that these are to be treated as not to exceed prices. And so we have arrived at a bottom number that we need to ask for today of $956,661.
Let me explain something. I think the major thing you've got to keep in mind is the scope of this project is considerably different than when we started. What we've ended up with is 23,000 square feet more of office space, shell space. When we moved the EOC out, we did not reduce the building because we were going to have to you redesign it. And we thought it was better to leave it in there and try and do it all within the budget. We're running, it's $1 million over, but we think it's a good investment for 23,000 more square feet of building and all the changes. That's why we're coming back. The scope of the project's bigger. We have more space, so it should last longer in the future. And we thought that was a better decision than trying to cut the cost. And that's why you're here today, is your project and your scope of your project's a lot bigger. And we think it's a good use of the money.
Joe, I got a couple of questions. Well, on the administration building originally, or the 2 buildings over there, what was the original amount budgeted for that?
I think on the original amount on the cost of the admin building is $45 million. And we call that, that's both buildings over on the other side, including the bridge. And that's 171,502 square feet of office space.
And how much, that's total office space? Does that include the 23,000 acres?
Yes, it does.
Okay. And then how much are we over on budget overall?
We're over 1.7% over.
That's what I wanted, was percentage.
It's about 1.7, I think. The total, including all the buildings, the 43rd Avenue complex, which is 32,000 square feet, which is the supervisor elections and are some of our public works people, that's $3,802,000. The 43rd Avenue EOC complex is roughly looking at $5,926,000. That's 16,000 square feet. The reason it's so expensive is it's being, built. Its walls are thicker and it needs a lot more electronics and things, communication equipment. The total budget for all of this, all of the 4 buildings, is $54,800,000. Another issue we have is the utilities enterprise fund had bought the whole property out there on 43rd, that whole block from 41st to 45th, and we had to reimburse because they're an enterprise fund for the property that we were utilizing also. So that's all part of this, and we may have a few more change orders because of the EOC coming. The Emergency Operations Center communications touch you. It's a very important part if we have a hurricane, and it depends on how much redundancy we want. But
so we're looking at, and that's the point. You're looking at 1.7% overreach over what we budgeted for, but 4 years ago, 5 years ago.
Yeah, and we've got a lot more square footage.
I've built, I think I've built 3 houses. And I don't think I've ever, any house that I built anyway, I don't think I've ever come in at 1.7% over what I estimated. It's usually quite a bit more than that when you get into it and change orders and what you want to do differently and stuff. So, and the $64,800,000, I just want to point out, because you were gracious enough not to, that it's not 80 million or 85 million, and it hasn't grown from 23 million because we started out with an original budget. And these are some of the things that have been kicked around the last few years. And I think you and I didn't have anything to do with this, but I think
that would be a 30% reduction.
Yeah.
40% reduction in the cost.
That's a good point.
I mean, I think we should maybe go by that number now.
Good point.
Henry's not writing.
But anyway, thank you. I think you've all done a good job on this. Any other comments?
Just, Steve, so you think for the administration, the 2 buildings, this is the last change order you'll be bringing? I
believe so. There are a couple of cost savings that we'll bring to you, but those won't be painful.
Okay.
Well, it's looking beautiful.
Thank you. We think so.
The landscaping, everything is great looking.
We're very excited. I think it'll be a real asset to the city and the county.
Okay. Commissioners?
And when is the move-in date? Again?
Mid-August, we're trying to move people in August, maybe a little earlier for some departments if we can, but substantial completion doesn't mean that we're ready to move in. That means that it's considered substantially complete, and then we have to put our furnishings in, our computer equipment.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I'll move that we accept staff's recommendation to accept change order number 27.
Okay, we have a motion?
Second.
We have a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion carries.
Thank you very much.
We're going to take a 10-minute break for captioning. Thank you. The first item under Public Works is Oslo Boat Ramp Final Plan, and 45th Street, Gifford Dock Road, and potential boat ramp, 304 through 315.
Good morning, Jim Davis, Public Works Director, and I have with me this morning Mike Nixon in our engineering department, who's the project engineer for the Oslo Boat Ramp, and also George Kolzecki on your right. He's our environmental consultant with GK Environmental. Last month you requested staff to come back and give you an overview of the Oslo Boat Ramp progress, as well as talk a little bit about potential in the North County for a boat ramp at the east end of 45th Street or Gifford Dock Road. So that's the purpose of our presentation. The Oslo Boat Ramp site, of course, is located at the east terminus of Oslo Road, east of US 1 in the South County area. There is no boat ramp on the western shore of the Indian River south of Sebastian. We do have one, of course, along Wabasso Causeway, sort of in the middle of the river, and then several on the eastern shore of the river, both in the city of Vero Beach and in South Indian River County. But for about 22 miles there, there is no boat ramp on the western shore of the river. This is an aerial of that area. You can see...
Just dim the light so I can get a little better idea.
You can see the entomology lab located in this location, the public access for the Orca track west of there, and then of course the county owns all that property on the north side of Oslo Road. And after the first plan for the boat ramp was prepared, the county acquired the southern property south of the Oslo Road area with environmental lands money. So you can see, both south side and north side, there are environmentally protected conservation lands in those areas. The project overall is to pave Oslo Road. It's currently unpaved about where my pointer is, just east of the entomology lab. It's a graded road, a two-way road to the river. At the river itself is an old dilapidated ramp that is in very bad disrepair. There is a marl area where vehicles turn around there, and people basically today kind of just park along the marl road with their vehicles and trailers. And that's pretty much the existing condition. The proposed plan is to improve the boat ramp, to construct a new boat ramp, remove the old asbestos sheet piling and that area that is dilapidated. To the north of the concrete ramp would be a kayak canoe launching area, because this part of the river is conducive to good passive recreation for kayaking and canoeing. In addition, there'd be a paved turnaround so that vehicular traffic can turn their vehicles around to back into the ramp and then pull out. There is some docks along the ramp to facilitate launching the boat, as well as a small dock to the north for either observation or to assist the kayakers and the canoe people to launch their boat. There's also a kiosk sign in this location to educate the recreational users about some of the Indian River aspects. That could be an opportunity, for ecological education about the river. We're incorporating those in a lot of our parks now just to add a little educational component to the park. This is a little more detail of the boat ramp system. We're proposing what's called a tedder system, which is a boat ramp system that has been constructed in both Sebastian and Melbourne. It's a precast system that allows you to build the ramp without cofferdaming and dewatering, which causes turbidity and siltation. This system can simply be constructed in the wet, and we would simply put double turbidity curtains around the work zone, but there's very, very little disturbance of the bottom and the potential for siltation and turbidity. It's a 16-foot wide concrete system. It's actually precast T-beams that are simply laid into the water, and it'll be about 20 foot long, and it'll be on an 8-to-1 slope, and an approach slab will tie the ramp to the paved surface.
Jim, can I ask you real quick a question about the kiosk?
Sure.
Can we have that double perhaps as a shelter of some kind in the event of a lightning storm? Maybe have it grounded for safety purposes. It would be a good opportunity for quite possibly the only place, especially with the vehicles being so far away. Right. They may be able to get there, get out of the weather real quick under the kiosk and have it double. I mean,
we have a very small area here between the mean high water line and the edge of pavement, and we probably could do some kind of a little roof shelter there perhaps, but there's not a lot of land there. We're trying to not have impact to the wetlands to the north.
What size is the kiosk? Is the kiosk covered, or is it just a sign?
It was going to be basically a sign with a little covering just to protect, maybe a...
If there's a way while we're doing this, and I understand, and I don't want a big structure to obstruct the view of the river, but how far, let's see, I don't see a scale on the map anywhere, but I would venture to say it looks like perhaps 40, 50 yards to the parking from the boat ramp facility. Is it that far?
It's probably more like, that's about 100-foot radius, 50, maybe 100 feet between let me get to that next slide here.
They would run for the car anyway.
Well, the other thing. From this area right here might be potential for a kiosk in that area.
Just something. That's a concern. I mean, we've got them out at the St. John's, or had them out at the St. John's Marsh. I'd like to see something like that at Blue Cypress, just to allow people that are in the boats some opportunity to get in out of the elements whenever a thunderstorm can blow up on you rapidly during the summertime.
One of the things, I'm not an expert on weather, but I've had some training in weather because of instrument flying. And, things I've heard about thunderstorms and lightning is most of the lightning strikes are out in front of the storm before the rain even gets to you. And most people don't run for shelter until the rain starts. And I think it's a bad situation, but that's where your greatest risk is in front of the storm before the rain gets to you.
I would say your greatest risk is, but I would dispute that most of the lightning strikes are outside of or in front of the rain of a thunderstorm. I think that your most danger is because you're not out of the elements at the time. But quite frankly, sometimes you just can't get to shelter fast enough, and I don't think it's a accurate statement that most of your lightning strikes are ahead of the storm.
Well, it may not be because I didn't develop it, but the scientists and the people that study weather told me that, and I believe them.
No, I think that most lightning accidents happen at that time would be a true statement.
We will consider that, of course, in our design.
Well, I'm only one-third if they would like no lightning shelters.
Honestly, I'd never disagree with you. You know that.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, Commissioner, you're getting there. You're getting there.
Okay. This is an overall picture of our preferred site plan. We do have an entry feature coming into the site where we can put some signage also there. We have 20 spaces for vehicular and trailer parking, 10 spaces for just vehicular parking, because many people like to just put their kayak or canoe up on the roof of their vehicle, and they can simply be close to the access there if they're carrying that. Of course, the paved road and the turnaround and along the river itself, the ramps and the dock. You can see the stormwater management. We're going to try to utilize an existing open ditch to discharge the stormwater into off the paved surfaces. We're not going to disturb the major a wetland area and water body south of that existing ditch. In that way, what we're disturbing in this area, much of which has already been disturbed, this upland area, and then this could be used for stormwater management. We feel that that's a good design. We have met, of course, with the environmental community at the entomology lab, most recently on March 23rd, and this seems to be the preferred plan, which minimizes impact. There will be very little impact on the north side, on the Orca properties. We're not doing really anything in the north side of the road. This was the very first conceptual plan where we had parallel parking on both sides, but we were impacting the wetlands to the north. And then the next generation was a more aggressive parking area to the south, which actually got into more wetland impacts. So the third generation plan is this one that's before you, which keeps most of the improvements as close to the existing south edge of pavement as we can get them, and does not go into that wetland area to a great degree at all. The wetland impacts are about 1.1 acre. So there would be mitigation proposed, of course. We have to go through permitting with the St. Johns River Water Management District and Florida DEP, and that's where George Kolzecki will help us acquire those permits. And the feeling is the project will have many positive benefits. The paving will reduce sediments going into the river, and reduce the turbidity that occurs right after a rainfall event. This will have minimal wetland impacts, minimal fill, and the tedder system will provide minimal dewatering to build the actual ramp. And that's basically the Oslo project. Before I get into the North Gifford project, if you'd like to talk about this one or ask any questions, we'll be glad to respond.
Jim, I have a couple things. On the canoe and kayak launch, is that going to be more of just a sand beach
Yes.
type launch? Okay.
Very, very little improvement there. It'll just be grading, maybe just a little bit, but utilizing the existing area where they actually do launch canoes and kayaks today.
Okay. Kind of my preference, if we could, moving the kiosk more to the south side so it's closer to the actual boat ramp itself, particularly if there's going to be information on there about the speed zones and manatees and stuff. I can just see where it is. A guy's going to come in, turn around, back his boat down, pull up, park, walk to his boat, and he'll never get anywhere near that kiosk. So if there's some way to move that to the south so it's a lot closer to where they would actually be walking onto the ramp, that we might get more notice of it there.
Okay.
I think, first I want to just make sure everybody's very clear. I think that we do need these improvements to this boat ramp area. It's a very sorry facility that's down there right now, and certainly improving it is in the best interest for everybody. My one big concern is, a couple of weeks ago we had a letter from Dr. Grant Gilmore documenting the fact that this is an area of significant spawning areas for spotted sea trout, and also a significant habitat for juvenile redfish. My big concern is just the intensity of use we might be ramping up here. On the trailer parking spots, 40-foot length, is that based on a certain boat length that'll fit in there, or what was the criteria to come up with 40 feet?
Well, a standard vehicular parking space is 20 feet wide, 20 feet long, but 10 foot wide. Any boat trailer really that'll accommodate a boat as long as 15, 17 feet would be an additional 20 feet when you add the tongue length onto it. So the thinking here is the 40-foot spaces will be able to get a standard vehicle, pickup truck, whatever, and a standard trailer that would pull perhaps a 17-foot boat or smaller to this area and park it safely. We're not proposing, longer parking spaces that you could accommodate a 24-foot boat or something longer than that, but many flat-bottom boats, even that draw a foot of water, are from 12 to 15 foot long, and when you add that tongue length on it, you're 20 feet plus 20, and that's 40.
Okay. That would be one of my ideas, is that to keep it to a smaller boat size, more like a small flats boat, that would be more appropriate. I have a 22-foot center console, and I don't think this would be a very appropriate site for me to be putting in a boat that size. And
I don't think you could park in the parking space.
Yeah, I just want to make sure that the length there is conducive to smaller boats. Okay. And the other thing is, again, just the number of boats and intensity. Is it possible to cut this down to maybe 15 trailer spaces?
Sure.
And that would have a little bit less impact on everything and just minimize
we debated as to how many spaces to provide. I know that on a weekend, I've been there on weekends, and I've seen 10, 12, 14 spaces just parked along the side of the road. If we don't provide at least enough for the current use and projecting, in the South County area, we're going to have growth and we're going to have more demand for access to the river. It's the only ramp we'll have south of Sebastian. If we don't provide at least a minimal number of spaces, they're going to be parking along the road, or they'll go elsewhere, I guess. But
I would not be in favor of reducing the number of spaces. I think what we're trying to do is we're trying to put these vehicles on an impervious surface that will not cause turbidity upon rain. What they will be doing is they still will be using the facility. They'll be parking on the side of the road, wearing grass. When it rains, the turbidity would go into the lagoon. And I understand the intent of what Commissioner O'Brien is saying, but as far as reducing the number of parking spots, I would not be in favor of that.
Our original plan, I think, had 30 or 40 on that, and so we have reduced it down to 20.
A question, too. I'm just curious, maybe, Pete, you can tell me, it's been so long, but most of the boats, when you start getting above 17, 18 foot, you're generally with a float-on trailer type.
The hull changes drastically from 17, 19 up.
Yeah, and I don't know if there's even enough water there to even use a float-on trailer type. So, you're really going to restrict that just by the fact that they're not even going to, even if they want to put a bigger boat in there, they're not going to be able to.
Yeah. I agree with that. They may try.
I've seen them try.
They may have trouble getting it back out. Or getting it to float off.
And most ocean boats, very few, in my opinion, ocean boats, not to say they won't try to use it, but they'll certainly, if they're in the part of the county, they're going to go to Fort Pierce.
Right.
And it's so close to the inlet, and with fuel prices being what it is, you're cheaper to trailer it an extra 10 miles than you are to do anything else. But I think what Jim's saying about the size boat and what they're trying to accommodate here is, and I'm not going to say it's appropriate, it's simply what's being used now. And we're just trying to make that facility a little bit better.
Any other questions? Thank you, Jim. You want to go on to the next one?
Yes, this is an aerial of the 45th Street Gifford Dock Road. You can see that, of course, the road takes a 90-degree turn north-south and on an angle to the river. This is the existing dirt road south of Grand Harbor. This is private property, recently purchased, I believe, for single-family home or whatever. But right now there is a wood dock at the end of Gifford Dock because historically this area has been an area where property owners
Can you zoom in on that for me, Jim?
To the river.
With the elm. Oh, that's.
Isn't that also? Is that the property in question with the city of Vero Beach?
Yes.
That's to the south of the road, area? Or all of it?
To the south of the road, and I think it goes all the way down to the. Does it go to the Barber Bridge? Does it go that far south? Not quite. To the canal. 37th.
So that may all end up possibly in the city of Vero Beach,
or the Land Acquisition Committee's purchase.
Yeah.
But basically, I think what this aerial shows is that we do have wetlands to the north, wetlands to the south. We have I think about a 50-foot road right-of-way that used to go straight, but when Grand Harbor came in, the alignment was changed.
Why was that, whenever that's not their property? When you say go straight, I'm assuming 45th used to go directly from there to the river, straight east? Is that what you're talking about, Jim?
Yes, sir. I was here when that happened, but I don't recall the reason.
I don't understand why they would move a road closer to the development by choice.
I don't recall the reason. I really don't. I know that when the marina was proposed...
Roland said maybe he can answer that question. I'd just like to know for a couple reasons.
Yeah, Roland Du Bois, Chief of Environmental Planning. It was realigned by Grand Harbor when they came in the mid-'80s and were developing. It used to continue slanting down without the 90-degree angle. You can almost see right there. Yeah, it used to go just like that.
Okay. All right. Yeah.
And when Grand Harbor was developing, that was realigned.
Who owns the land straight east of 45th Street? Is that private?
That's the property we're calling Lobo. It's actually 3 tax parcels. Staff has looked at this in the past and concluded that there's essentially 3 grandfathered parcels where there could be development, 1 unit per parcel, but it's virtually all wetland, and was previously mentioned, it is a property that was newly proposed for our land acquisition committee to look at as a potential.
Jim, go back to the aerial, please. Hold on, Roland, please. The dipper-looking parcel there, for the lack of a better term, that is straight east of 45th Street. Yes, right there, down south now. What is that? What is the terrain of that dipper? Is that a canal that goes a drainage ditch or an old road? What is that?
That's actually 45th Street right away goes straight to the river. There's a strip there, I believe, that's public right away. And then south of that is the CGW, the northern tip of what's called the CGW Estuarine Wetland Mitigation Bank, which is part of a restored wetland where the developer or owner sells mitigation.
I see a terrain change of some kind, and I probably should have driven out there, but I didn't.
No, Commissioner Davis, you're talking about this section right here?
Exactly. This piece, what does the terrain of that?
This is the impoundment dike. This is all a former mosquito control impoundment to the south, and this is the dike when they dredged the interior ditch to create the impoundment. So that's just basically a spoil dike.
And
when they made the impoundment.
What would the topography? Would that be higher or lower than this, in your opinion? And I'm not holding you to it.
No, this is going to be higher.
Not just the dike.
This part here will be wetlands. That's wetlands there.
Okay.
Does anyone know why they're annexing that into the city? Why the city's annexing it besides to get to Grand Harbor?
They want to be opposed to the charter.
Pardon?
To beat the charter.
To get to Grand Harbor, so they got a bigger tax.
They want to exercise their rights that we don't have under the charter.
Oh, that's right.
I heard a convention center with 17 stories wants to move in there. Sorry about that, gentlemen. I shouldn't have digressed.
Because taxes in the city are a lot higher in the unincorporated area. City of Vero Beach tax rate is twice my unincorporated rate tax, so it's not for financial reasons that people annex. I wouldn't think.
Unless you're developing.
Oh, yeah, that's right. I forgot.
Keep going, Jim.
Thank you, Wesley.
This is the tax assessor's map of the area. You can see we just have a very small parcel there on the river that's connected to the road. These are, as Roland said, these are 3 privately owned parcels, and then of course the Grand Harbor mitigation area, I believe, is in this area. So it would be very difficult to construct an improved ramp with parking to be able to turn a vehicle around and park. There's a fairly narrow right-of-way, and unless we get into wetland impacts north and south and acquire some more property in that area, we think it'd be very difficult to get any size facility with the existing land we have.
Mr. Chairman, I don't mean for anybody to take this wrong, but that's a pretty obvious statement. And I guess really the question that I should have asked is not can we. The question should have been is how can we. And I'm seeing some tremendous opportunities for a boat ramp facility here with the Land Acquisition Committee talking about purchasing the property. And I'm not an expert in mitigation, but Mr. Kozicki could help me. I mean, perhaps if we purchase that property and take a couple hundred feet and then dedicate the rest of it into conservation, we can have land preserved forever of wetlands. We can have some public access for boat access and waterfront access, and it doesn't necessarily have to go north. It can go straight off the end of 45th Street. And so, Commissioners, maybe I asked the wrong question. It should, instead of can we, I would think it's an obvious statement that we cannot put a launch facility on this tenth of an acre, quarter acre parcel. The question should be that how can we, and then let us make our decision whenever they bring it back to us on far as how can we.
How far along is that, Roland, on the land acquisition? Now we could put the Wesley Davis boat ramp in there.
On the land acquisition, it's a newly nominated site. We're actually doing site visits tomorrow and the next day, and it's the beginning of a process where they evaluate these new sites with the existing sites, rank them, and so on. And if it's a property that the committee and the commission wants to pursue for acquisition, there's the next step of the appraisals, and assuming we can come to terms on price under a willing seller program. So.
I'll tell you, I do agree with Wesley, and I think that is a prime piece of waterfront property that is environmentally sensitive and could be used for public access to the river without damaging the property. And even if you didn't like that, it's better than having homes set in there.
Mm-hmm. I agree with that, but I would also want to consider that we don't hopscotch over really good properties too that have been on the list for some time. Absolutely. Just for a boat ramp.
Yep, absolutely.
Let's just have that agreed.
Good point.
And they do that with their rating system.
Right. And the committee, I lend a lot of credibility to their decisions. I've been on both ends of some of their decisions, and but I think we do this, Mr. Baird, whenever we're acquiring right of way. We have purchased environmentally sensitive property with the bond dollars, and in the event that the county needs some of that property for right-of-way, we purchased that with traffic impact fees. To me, this is an excellent opportunity, probably once in a lifetime for us to be able to create something that in my opinion is desperately needed, and the demand will only grow in the future. And so I appreciate the Commission's indulgence in that, and I would, I suppose, throw this back to our county administrator and say, Mr. Baird, how can we put a boat launch facility? And this is my vision, just real quick, a wonderful spot for a kayak launch to the north and perhaps a boat ramp to the south.
I think it looks like a nice piece of property. Of course, price is of the issue, and we're going to look at it. Well, we could also let them annex, since it's probably not developable, in the city of Vero Beach, and they could put the boat dock in.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Now, and I'm good with that too, and I wouldn't mind participating with them, because I use the city of Sebastian's, and really I would not use very often either one of these boat ramps. I go out of Sebastian Inlet, but I think it's important not just to look at one segment of the county, but the entire segment of the county when it comes to water access.
Well, I think too that if that property, and I'm guessing, I really don't know obviously, but if that property were in the city of Vero Beach, that would probably. Houses were built there, they probably wouldn't want a public boat ramp there.
That's a good point, Phil.
Well, I'm at a loss why someone who's got wetlands would want to go into the city of Vero Beach and pay twice the taxes on their wetlands. It just doesn't make sense. But
you think there's an ulterior motive?
I think it's called density.
Oh, okay.
Oh, thank you.
Keep off the ground.
I was wondering if I could make a few comments about it. Would be all right? First of all, you got a seagrass awareness project that was started in Vero Beach. These are Vero Beach women who are concerned about the quality of the seagrasses. I'm sorry, we only have 5 copies left. They sold like hotcakes. Good. How much did you pay? $10 or something? And they sold quite a few thousands of dollars. I think $14,000 worth of cattle.
Worth to various organizations like
Yeah.
Harbor Branch.
I think Keep Indian River Beautiful.
And Audubon got
I think I bought one from that organization.
Audubon got $1,000 for him,
I think
too.
probably at my age, I appreciate this more than you do, Wesley.
And the March calendar lady is on our board, Jean Ketchpole, who was here the other day when we did the landscaping ordinance, too. So she's been very active in the community. But if you look at the back of the calendar, I know it might be kind of tough to get through it, but if you look at the back of the page of it, it indicates that they were really concerned about the loss of the seagrasses in Indian River County, where we've lost 30% since 1950. And a lot of this has been done through, boat traffic and pollution and coastal construction. And we have about 7 species of seagrasses in the general area that you're talking about today. And then on the last page of the handout I gave you was that Governor Christez last month had seagrass awareness in the back page, last page there. It's the proclamation on the importance of seagrasses.
And I was busy looking at your calendar.
Could you repeat everything you just said for Chairman Wheeler?
I originally was going to present this. I was going to give you the calendars last.
Like second graders up
What
here.
I think you're saying is that you've got the seagrass marked along here. And I'm assuming you're kind of in opposition to what we're talking about.
I think there's a good comparison there. This is put out by St. John's Water Management District. The green is seagrasses.
Well, my question would be, though, would you be opposed to, a boat ramp at this point, or maybe several homes there with docks across?
Well, I'm not arguing against the 45th Street.
Okay, I was
dock. And that's what I'm promoting, is that you put most of your emphasis on that. If you're applying for grants, this is the obvious place to put sea grants. And so, yes, before the land is before the Land Acquisition Committee. It's going to be looked at. I would put your going for your grants and your opportunities, put it at the 45th Street. It's only 10 minutes away from Oslo. If you look at Oslo, the difference between these two sites is fantastic seagrasses.
Yeah.
You can see that very easily.
Oh, yes.
And if you do other comparisons of that, you're closer to, I didn't draw it in there, but you're closer to the intercoastal waterway from the 45th Street. It won't require any dredging. The water level is deeper at 45th Street than is Oslo. And it's not in an aquatic preserve. The Oslo dock is going to be put in an aquatic preserve. The permitting is going to be much more difficult. I can tell you that now.
When you said it is or is going to be?
It's going. Well, you haven't applied yet. My understanding is you haven't applied for the permits. I'm saying.
When's the designation going to happen?
Designations on what?
On the aquatic preserve for the Oslo.
It is.
Oh, that was my question. Okay.
From the 17th Street Bridge going south, you're in the aquatic preserve. You're outside of the other aquatic preserve that starts heading towards Melbourne doesn't include the 45th dock. So you're going to have a lot less permitting problems there. And it's going to require less taxes, because it's not going to be as costly to put in a dock at 45th Street than it is at Oslo Road. And then the important thing, I think, for the fishermen, which you're trying to produce the dock for, you'll be preserving the place where the best fish, and you mentioned Dr. Gilmore's letter pointing out the importance for the sea trout particularly, but about 4 or 5 other species there. So this is you're talking about spending a lot of money at Oslo with the probability that people won't be able to get out there in their boats. So, I mean, you'd be building, in my opinion, a white elephant. And if you wanted to go for this money, you put it into the 45th. And then if that doesn't work out and there's problems, then we can go back and consider Oslo. But I would put your original emphasis, if you're going to be buying the land, and it's an impoundment area around there, it's not going to be quite such a severe environmental impact. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Becker.
Well, I changed my mind. Wesley sounds better at 45th.
Well, And I'll maintain my position on it. I think we have the demand for both, and better, I'll even change it. I think we have the need for both. I think that the Oslo facility will continue to be used whether we improve it or not. I think that we have the opportunity to be stewards of the area, and that this would be an environmental enhancement by stopping what is happening down there right now. As far as if you go there after a strong thunderstorm, that Morrill Road runs directly into the river, which directly on top of the seagrasses, and I think just from that environmental aspect is very important. The second one is, again, I am an avid proponent, and I do not apologize for being a proponent of public access to our waters as recreational facilities in this community. And I think both of them is where we need to go, and I'll disagree with Mr. Searcy here. I think we can afford both of them.
Mr. Searcy?
I'm Charlie Searcy, 1035 22nd Avenue. We don't disagree on that particular issue, Wesley. The issue that I'm concerned about is that this thing has been on the table for this commission and other commissions for years. And one group approves it, and the next group comes back in and has all these issues. And I understand that's the way government works. But at some point, was it on the 21st of last month? I had the privilege of attending the meeting down at the Mosquito Place down there with Jim and all of the fine folks there that seem to be against this item were there. Jim and his capable staff answered every question they had, and there was no issue that this gentleman just brought up that he was going to object. The last statement I heard come out of his mouth was, "Okay, let's go." And this business about the seagrass and all, I don't know if any of you folks are fishermen, but as a fisherman, I'm not going to go out and destroy the stuff that attracts the fish. It just doesn't make sense. It absolutely does not make sense what these guys are saying. It's a scare tactic, and either y'all need to do it or get off the pot. The facility is needed. It needs to be done now. If what these folks are saying is absolutely true, and I know this Mr. Gilmore has a terrific reputation, and I don't know anything about his study, but if there's a concern about it, go out of Round Island sometime and come back out into the Indian River and look at the grass beds. They're flourishing over there, and that's a boat ramp, and my goodness, those big boats come out of there. So it just doesn't make sense that you can't get it done. Jim has done a marvelous job in accommodating all the different things about the environmental issues, the runoff issues. The people of this community deserve to be able to have access to the Indian River. If you can do the Gifford thing, that's fantastic, and I think you folks would be well served to help the people of this community. Get both of them if you can afford it, but don't let one preempt the other. Let's get Oslo done. It's going to be used, and it sounds like now the part of the issues that they're concerned about with the boats running through the grass or whatever, that's an issue that law enforcement needs to take care of. And if they can't handle it, maybe we need to get some new law enforcement people. But you just need to do something. I've been working on this thing for probably 10 years. Obviously, that doesn't say a lot about my ability to get things done, but it just doesn't make sense what you're not doing. I mean, we can go out and we can spend millions and millions of dollars to buy Sebastian boat, whatever that thing was up there, the dilapidated fish house.
Careful now.
I mean, it doesn't make any difference. But when it comes to helping the people of this community, you need to get off the pot, and I would encourage you to do that. Some of y'all may be fishermen or fisher ladies, I don't know, but kayakers. Have you been down to Oslo on a Saturday morning to see the number of people that try to use that facility? I think you would be well served to proceed with it, and Jim and them have a good plan.
So you're in favor of the boat ramp?
No, I wouldn't say that, Gary. You bet I'm in favor of it. I mean, we've been working on it as long as I have, and talking to all the different commissioners, we finally get one group that's in favor of it, and they vote to approve it, and then we change commissioners. So it's we just need to get it done.
Mr. Searcy, I'd agree with you that true fishermen are not going to destroy the seagrasses and stuff, but unfortunately, there's not a little brain-o-meter at the end of this road that checks everybody going down there, and if it wasn't for other inconsiderate boaters or people not aware, the term prop scarring would never come up. But the reality is, anybody can go buy a jet boat or a jet ski. 1,000 people a day are moving here, and they're going to buy a boat, and they're going to launch it without a clue as to what they're doing. So I've got to look at both sides. That yes, the fishermen aren't going to destroy the resource, but a lot of other people might be destroying the resource. And yeah, we can say law enforcement, but you know, I've been on the river a lot, and Commissioner Davis probably agree. I haven't seen a Marine Patrol, I don't know how many years on the river. Every time I'm in that the manatee zone in front of Harbor Branch, I'm yelling and waving down probably 5 or 6 boats to slow down through there. There's no enforcement on the water. So it'd be nice to say, yeah, we have more enforcement, but the reality is it's not there. And so I'm just trying to make sure we balance both sides here to protect those seagrass beds and allow the true fishermen, the people that know what they're doing, have access. So
there probably aren't many of us out there that know what we're doing, but I can assure you there's a lot of people that do abide by the rules and regulations. I've been checked a number of times out on the water, and I guess it's because right there.
You got that squinty eye look to you there.
Yet to get a ticket, by the way, but you know, I could say that it might be raining outside too, but it's not. But if you just think about all the things that might possibly happen, the river could dry up. You know, with the drought conditions we've got. So, you know, anything could happen, but for goodness sake, get it done. If y'all are afraid to make this decision to get it done, just vote today. We're not doing it. Jim Davis, throw the plan away. Get the heck out of Dodge. But if you're not, make a decision to get it done. We deserve this facility. The money is available or going to be available, according to Jim Davis, either from the state or from his pocket. And I would just make the decision.
Thanks,
I would
Jim.
appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Jim. And now it's the Jim boat ramp.
We need a little Jim bridge or a little boat ramp. You need a motion on this, or Jim? What were we after? To approve the site plan, or this is just for the Oslo boat ramp?
It was for information because some new commissioners hadn't seen it, and there had been much discussion.
Okay.
We have applied for a FAN grant. We've received the FERDAP grant. Both of those grants will have a deadline, and if we're going to meet the deadlines for the grants, then Mr. Kolzecki needs to move ahead immediately with environmental permitting.
What's he doing sitting here?
So I just want to give you a status.
Well, about the 45th Street dock.
I'll make that in the form of a motion.
That seems easier to do.
I would like to see both of them.
I've never seen you stutter before.
Absolutely, both of them, but that seems
It seems like this is an
easier.
opportune time.
And that's located in the center more of the county.
Absolutely.
So more people would be.
I think it's wonderful, and what this would do, in effect, it would give us the opportunity for a boat ramp at you'd have one in Sebastian, basically Wabasso, even though it's in the center, and then this would be the Gifford area, and then one in South County.
Now, where is that land going to end up? In the city or the county?
It depends on their actions, but either way, of course, we've been approached, and there's been some interest in purchasing that as environmentally sensitive lands, and we can put some parks and recreation dollars with that to purchase the portion. And we're buying the whole pie, for the lack of a better example, and then we could buy a piece of that pie for the boat ramp facility out of non-bond dollars. And then once we get the real estate secured, then we could work on the plan, get another grant at the same time we're already moving forward with the Oslo plan.
And you could talk to the city?
And the city would have an interest, a vested interest in this.
Not being polarizing, that would be good.
But boat ramps are good ideas.
Right, everybody.
Yeah, everybody.
There are two more people that want to be heard before we get a motion here, I guess.
Bob Johnson, Corwin Subdivision. At the last meeting, when Jim was tasked to come up with a plan, Wesley said that he would not have the 17th Street, this plan here, preempt the building of Oslo.
45th, yeah.
And I would hope that the motion would be to approve the Oslo boat ramp as Jim's submitted it and move forward with it and not have the other preempt. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Not having it preempted, but in the conversation I heard, it would be easier, maybe quicker, to get a boat ramp on 45th.
Yeah.
Is that what permits and other things?
I think once some land is acquired to the south is what I'm hearing. You know, if environmental lands purchases one or more of those lots to the south, that'll give us enough land to facilitate turning a vehicle around and some parking and kiosk and that kind of thing. And then, you know, once we have some land that we can work with, we can design it and move ahead.
Yeah, I think the first step on 45th is to see where we go with the land, whether the city annexes or whether we buy it.
Right.
So I'm kind of dead in the water until
then,
so to speak.
And I guess right now, probably about the best time, I'll make a motion on the 45th is basically, and I'll be specific to staff or to Joe on this one, how can we put a boat launch facility at the proximity of the Gifford Docks and or 45th Street? And
how is that a motion?
Is that your motion?
That was my motion.
A motion or a question?
Well, you got. The last time I asked it, it was just a motion.
Look into doing it.
Yeah, well, exactly.
It was a questionable motion.
Yeah.
Questionable motion.
It was,
No,
It's an interrogative motion.
Y'all understand why I'm asking what I'm asking and how I'm asking it. I mean, we've already asked the question, can we? And we came back, no, that site's not big enough. So let's get creative and figure out how we can do it. That's the nature of my question.
I don't know,
Chairman, I'll second his questionable question.
Thank
We
you.
have a motion and a second under discussion. I don't know that we can do anything until we decide whether we're going to have that property or not.
Well, that's a part of the how.
Okay.
That's exactly right. That's a part of the how.
Okay, and that's in the works, I'm confused, I think. That's in the works right now.
But that did not include a boat launch facility.
Maybe perhaps Mr. Blois can give us a time frame of
I'm good on
taking
time
place?
frame, but just basically, I've been told basically that facility is not big enough for a boat ramp.
Well, restate I don't understand your motion. Restate your motion, Leslie.
I want to staff to come back and tell us how we can put one there.
Well, we don't want
Okay.
to jack
That's
the
it.
price either.
Yeah.
And so that's why I asked my question, how can we locate a boat ramp at the Gifford Dock or the 45th Street facility?
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
Whatever.
Mr. Chairman, just for the sake of hopefully maybe a little compromise, I'd like to make a motion that we approve the design for the Oslo Road boat ramp with the modification that we reduce the number of boat trailer parking spaces from 20 plus 1 to 17 plus 1.
We have a motion. I'll second that for discussion.
I agree.
18?
It'd be 18
18
total.
versus 21.
We'd be dropping it just 3 spaces. I agree, we need the boat ramp improved. We do need better access. It will prevent the runoff. My thought is if we just reduce a few of the parking spots, we'll reduce some of the intensity of the use of that area, given the significant seagrass and environmental habitat there.
I don't understand the reasoning for reducing the amount of spots.
It's reducing the intensity of the use. If there's 3 parking spots there, only 3 boats are going in and out. If there's 100 parking spots and you got 100 boats going in and out. So it's a matter of the intensity of the use, how many boats are going in and out of there. It really hasn't even been mentioned, but there's a significant bird rookery due east of this area as well. So it is a very sensitive environmental area. So by reducing the number of available spaces will reduce some of the intensity of the use of those waters.
Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, I'm wondering with I'm sorry, go ahead, Wesley.
Well, I mean, this is originally started out at 40 slips, if I'm not mistaken. We slashed that in half. If we want to make it illegal for boats to run over the bird rookery, I'm good with that. As far as reducing it by 3 spaces, it's time, no pun intended, but the fish are cut bait.
I know where Peter's coming from, but to me, 3 or 4 spaces really is insignificant. And the concern I have is they are going to be parking along the road. Whether there's 18 spaces or 21 spaces, they are, I mean, you go to the boat ramps now on a weekend, if there's not space there, they find some place to park. And I think that increases the risk for more damage to the area than actually reduces it.
And that's happening at many of our other facilities.
Absolutely.
Okay,
Best thing we do is build one at 45th and maybe take some pressure off of it.
Any further discussion?
Yes, can we monitor the grass? How can we monitor the damage, if there is damage? Because we could cut off usage, couldn't we? That would be hard to do, but we could.
No, Mr. Kolzicki could probably address that, but monitoring seagrass is a pretty time-consuming and expensive proposition. It's
wet, too.
Okay. Any further discussion? Now we'll call the question. All those in favor?
Can we repeat the motion?
The motion is to approve the design with the reduction of boat trailer parking spaces from 20 spaces plus one handicap trailer space to 17 spaces plus one handicap trailer space.
Okay. We'll call the question. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign.
Aye.
Aye. 4-1. And
I know the feeling.
Yeah, I think we all do.
So do I.
Do you want to make a motion on the boat ramp?
Yeah, I'd love to. Did we vote on the 45th Street? With my how can we? Yeah, we already did that.
We did.
I moved to approve.
We're back to
staff
Oslo.
recommendation. Yeah, off at Oslo.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second, I can't do that.
You can't do them both.
No.
I'll second it.
Thank you.
For discussion,
Okay.
back to the permitting. If we find it's difficult to permit that, can we move, and we purchased a property on 45th, can we move that money up there as far as the grants?
I have no idea.
Yeah, and
How does that work?
It may be difficult, but I think anything's going to be difficult.
Well, I don't look at this as being very difficult, compared.
Well, and that's because we haven't started yet, though. But I understand what you're saying. But having an existing structure and existing facility there, we will be able to get that permitted. All we're doing is improving. We are not reinventing the wheel. I think quite possibly it's going to be more difficult to start anew where there currently isn't than it is to just put in facilities where there currently is. And George, I may yield to his expertise on that, but.
Okay, let's.
Comment on the manatee plan. Is there a boat ramp that's allowed at that side of 45th Street?
Uh-oh.
Yeah, we'd have to do an assessment of the opportunity out there. I mean, there's certain provisions in our manatee plan that if you have a high manatee mortality, high manatee use site, there could be some restrictions. The fact that there's less grass beds there, I think it might be a lesser used area so I don't anticipate problems, but we'd have to look into that whole thing.
That would be answered with my motion that we've already approved of how.
Roland, don't sit down yet. I got a question for you. Before I go on that, now, you've heard the whole argument here. What would your recommendation be on the boat ramp and what we've discussed back and forth? You're the environmentalist.
On the 45th or
no, on Oslo.
Yeah, I think there's been effort to try to minimize impact. You have a marked channel, even though everybody knows there's lush grass beds there, probably the most dense in probably the county. But you already have an existing ramp, existing marked channel. There's no improvements proposed to the channel itself. I think there is some self-regulation as far as boat size that will occur. If there's concern about prop scarring from rampant just taken off in any direction, or there could be some specialized enforcement when this opens or periodically at the site. So, I've heard both sides. I think there is a need for improvement. It's just a matter of level of improvement.
Well, maybe this is crazy, but why couldn't on that ramp, if it goes directly to the channel, if there would be some way, like in a swimming pool, to run the buoys out so the channel's not only marked, but you couldn't cross those lines?
That would be very prudent. That, I mean, with your motor on, I'd agree with that. I mean, we've got an area
you
that
got
is being
buoys
used
there
that has prop scar, in fact, across the grasses. And to minimize that footprint, that would be prudent. And I would be, that may be something we need to modify to this plan, is to clearly mark the deepest spot and the used path.
And I'm not talking about just marking, I'm talking about putting like a rope with buoys on it, like having a pool, something of that nature from buoy to buoy, so you know if you cross that, you're going to be crossing a line that's going to get caught in your prop.
I don't want to create something that's not aesthetically pleasing at the same time, and we could put some simple.
Well, I'm not trying to design it. I just think you do need something, because people invariably they do it all the time. They run aground.
Right, and I think that Commissioner O'Brien's comments about the kiosk in that area where the boats are, that's a great comment.
Thank you. Jens Tripson, 2525 14th Street, Vero Beach. I would be in favor of Peter's motion, but y'all have already killed it. But I would like to say, as far as Gary, what you said about blocking the channel so you can't get out, I think Charles will agree with me there, that a lot of the people that are going to be using this boat ramp are theoretically going to be in shallower draft boats that want to fish the grass flats that are there to the north and to the south. And if you block that somehow, then they're going to have to go all the way out to the intercoastal and then come back in shallow water anyhow. So to go to that expense, as much as I'd like to protect the area, it really doesn't make any sense to throw that part in. And if you would like to, I think you can get it online through the U.S. Navy. Their 24-hour photographs of the state. That area and the moorings flats area and the Round Island flats look like highways with the prop scarring. The Oslo area specifically is just crisscrossed, where people are drifting across, they finish fishing, and then they think, oh, well, I'll get it up on plane and not hurt anything. But it can, just because the boat's up out of the water, their prop's still down the same depth, and they're cutting the seagrasses.
Yep.
Thanks.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
George Kolzicki, GK Environmental. I agree with what Jens is saying, but there's also seagrass prop scarring that goes on in all areas of the river, even areas that are further away from both ramps. So, I mean, it's a fundamental site that people like to fish in. It's a shallow seagrass area, so those impacts, have the potential to occur even with or without the boat ramp. The other comment I wanted to make, too, is with the 45th Street, it would be a good location to put a ramp. There will have to be some dredging that goes in with the ramp there. It is a little bit deeper, but we'd still have to do some excavation. There's less seagrass up close to the shoreline. But obviously you would need probably twice as much or 30 again as much of uplands in there to build a ramp similar to what you have at Oslo. You'll have similar situations. You'll have to have fill along that roadway, so you're going to have some similar type wetland impacts for that also. So
Nothing easy.
Nothing's easy.
If it were easy, anybody could do it.
That's right. That's right.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
What are we voting on?
Your motion.
Oh, it's got to be good. Aye.
That's the recommendation.
Yes.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
Aye.
Aye.
Whoa.
What happened?
Wait a minute. What'd y'all just shoot down?
The Oslo ramp.
Oslo ramp. Did y'all really?
What was...
Charles, you're...
Any further? Okay, we'll move on to the next item.
Staff needs direction. We got grants out there. We just need direction because I've got to do something with my grants. I've got 3 grants out there. Release the money, do whatever. I got a lot of money in this, so you just need to give me direction. I didn't understand the motions of.
The motion was to approve the staff's recommendation on the Oslo boat ramp. It was.
Bill 2 to 3.
Okay. What was it?
It was.
4-1.
What was the motion? I just need,
To approve the final plan?
It's staff's recommendation, I guess, approve
Yes.
final plan, allow the staff to proceed with the design, permitting, and construction of Oslo Road boat ramp facility.
Mr. Chairman, well, my objection, I think, was clear on this. I just didn't like the total number of slips, but I think we do need the improvements there and all the other things we've talked about. So, Commissioner Davis, I don't know what...
I can't reconsider it. Y'all can
No,
reconsider
we can
it.
make another motion.
Sure can, as long, I mean...
We've had 2 motions on this, they both failed. One was at 17 plus 1, one's at 20 plus 1.
I'm going to make it for 40? I'll try it.
I don't think that'll fool you.
I think the concern is the impact and trying to alleviate that as much as possible, and I'm on the side of conservative in the 17, 18 slots, but that's still a lot.
Well, the problem with the well, never mind. Somebody want to try another motion?
Yes, let me get my thoughts here for a minute.
Take 2.
I've already put everything away. I thought Wesley had a done deal here.
I did too.
Teaches me for thinking.
That happens. I found that.
And just as we're thinking here, just to, I don't know, take up a little bit of blank space, well, probably all they're going to do is paint less stripes in the parking lot. There's still this many boats on a Saturday use this property. Even if we build it smaller and more people use it, there's still going to be more people using it. I understand Commissioner O'Brien's concern. It is mine. And it's because of that I've purchased, or been a part of the purchases of the environmentally significant land around this area. And I just firmly believe that we can have a balance between people enjoying one of our natural assets versus locking it up, fencing it in, so that we can only look at it through certain times of the day, certain times of the year. Ladies and gentlemen, this is a decision that's affecting the future of Indian River County for many generations to come. We need to look 20 years down the road. We can protect our environment and natural resources, and building this site is an opportunity to do so.
Well, and I think what we're looking at here is improving a site that currently exists. It's not a case that it's shut down and fenced off.
Yeah,
so you can't get to the
that's
river.
what right now we just did. I mean, right now we decided to scratch it as it exists. I mean, to leave the facility alone and not make the improvements.
Well, it's used every weekend.
Substantially by at least the number of boats that we're talking
But we're
about.
not shutting it down.
No, the improvements. We have canceled the improvements to the facility, to the area.
How you coming, Peter?
We got some people that like to speak. Somebody like to spread some common sense here.
Joe, yeah, help us out.
I, of course, was planning on being here about something else later on the agenda, but
you're welcome
Joe
back.
Ehrman, I've lived at 4375 9th Lane. I've lived here all my 46 years. And I think there's only one other person in the room, and that's Mr. Tripton, that's probably lived here longer than I have. The ramp is right now is in serious sad condition. It needs to be improved. By improving the ramp, you probably improve the ecological impact that it's going to have to it by making the improvement. Most fishermen, like Mr. Searcy said, most fishermen care about it. The people that aren't fishermen, if they have a maintained facility, it will be better. It will be better for the environment. And you said it numerous times. You're improving an existing boat dock that currently exists. I wouldn't have the commission move on both projects, as you said, but this needs to be done. This needed to have been done, as Mr. Searcy said, 20 years ago. So we need a boat ramp on this side, and I think your impact on the environment
And I'm going to be one of the first persons to stand up and say, hey, I love to catch a redfish and a sea trout is more than anybody. But by making this facility, you're probably going to improve the environmental impact to it instead of lessening it, instead of damaging it more. The damage to all the seagrass throughout the river is all the way up the intercoastal from Jacksonville to Miami. I mean, that's no different. By doing this, you'll probably improve it. So I would urge you go ahead and reconsider your motion. If anything, go follow with Mr. O'Brien's motion, limit the parking spaces and proceed with it. But it still needs to be done. So,
Mr. Airman, Mr. Airman, you said that there was a possibility of this to improve the environmental.
I believe by improving your facilities, as such as said, and I know Jim Davis. I've known Jim Davis ever since he's worked here, and he's covered all the bases. I guarantee you that. And if he says it's an investment, it's going to lessen the environmental impact, I would go along with him. My own feelings say by improving a facility that's in sad condition the way it is right now, you are going to lessen the impacts of the environment. Right now, the ramp and the boat dock is in a condition that's very poor, and by having a very poor facility, people aren't going to take care of it and don't really aren't really going to follow the rules. They're going to do what they want. They're going to park on the side of the road. They're going to damage the mangroves. They're going to damage the road, cause more wash into the river and stuff like that. It needs to be improved, bottom line, and this is the way to do it. And it will lessen the impact, the environmental impact of the whole area, I believe. So,
we get a lot of that. Boat dock is in bad shape. It's not something to be proud of when you go down there as a community. It's a safety hazard, and it is a concern. So that's one thing you need to keep in mind as hard as this issue is.
You would be better off, as Commissioner Davis said, to go ahead, if you don't approve it, go ahead and lock it and make it add it to the walking trail. Just go down there and look at it, because you're eventually, the more people get, the more boats are going to continue to use it, the more damage is going to be done to the boat ramp, to the area around it, and to the environment.
Peter, how are you coming with it?
Well, I guess, I think I've said I think we do need to do this. I just wanted a couple fewer trailer slips, and I agree with what Mr. Ehrman said and what Commissioner Davis has said. That Morrow Road turbidity runs off in there. And there are boaters using that ramp now, so this isn't going to prevent anybody from still going down there, and actually with the improvements, so we can get more signage and maybe a few more channel markers and encourage people to stay in the channel. There are benefits to doing this all around.
Was
restate your motion again?
Well,
if we do that, I'd like to restate my motion. I mean,
was Dr.
typically when you have a
Gilmore's
motion that's failed,
objection to this
you shouldn't reconsider it unless you're on the wrong side.
Overscale it so much, but just to leave it as it is and fix it up, or how?
I think Dr. Gilmore's intent was just to let us know that this is a significant seagrass habitat. He has documented that out in the intercoastal, just off of this area, is one of the largest concentrations of spawning sea trout he's ever recorded, and that there are a lot of juveniles redfish in the seagrass areas. And I think Dr. Gilmore is pragmatic enough to realize there are going to be people going off fishing. There are now, and he just wanted to make sure we were aware of those environmental impacts and took it into consideration.
And commissioners, keep in mind, people have launched their boats there now.
Also, I need to mention that if we don't move ahead, I got to repay the money I've spent on the design. I've got a problem on my hands, plus getting future money from these agencies when you start down the road in a project and you pull off is not easy. They start to lose faith. So that's, there's a lot of concerns here from a staff perspective.
I think we're getting there.
Joe, do you have a rough estimate on those figures?
Well, here in the Florida Department of Environmental Protection FERDAP grant is $200,000. I think we spent a lot of money on design. We redesigned this 2 or 3 times. We've got environmental specialists. I bet we spent $50,000, $60,000 already. I think we have with everything.
What?
Oh, that's.
May I?
Yes.
And just trying to help you all do this, where the idea of if you build it, they will come, and we have reduced the numbers significantly, and I think we're looking at a difference of 4 spaces or 3 spaces. One of the problems that, and it's been brought up, is that even if you have 17 plus 1 or 20 plus 1, that people are going to be parking on the side of the road. So the potential, and I fish down there a lot. I fish in canoes. I've never seen 17 trailers there. But if you go with either of those two numbers, can I suggest that alongside of the road you put no parking and ask the sheriff to drive down there and ticket anybody that's parking, and then that will quickly eliminate the overflow. It's one option that you can throw in there. Do something today. Do one of the options. Do 17 plus 1 or 20 plus 1.
I'd be more than happy to help this commission move forward with my motion if they'd like to hear it. But
well, somebody make a motion.
Would that be me? Okay. I move staff recommendation and that we put no parking signs up. Cricket.
I will second that motion.
How many parking spaces are there now?
20.
No, well,
no,
none now.
There's
Well,
no,
how many park there basically?
Sandlot.
Yeah.
7 or 8? All right.
Yeah.
They park up and down that road and put dirt in the canal.
And I tell you, I mean, looking, if there, as we move further away from the river, the environmental impact from the turbidity and the moral, I mean, if we need overflow parking, it can be further away from the river if we've got to have it. But guys, I don't mean this in a bad way, and I do understand everybody. This is a tough decision, but I mean, just look at the benefits to the community, not just today, but 20 years down the road. Water access here is extremely important, and I know you're not debating that. You're having an issue with the seagrasses that are there, and I understand that 100%. But if you look at it, there is a channel that's there. You can see it where the seagrass is not on the aerial, and then it does go out. Hopefully the water, and in fact, the water does get deeper the closer you go to the ICW. Hopefully people will be responsible with it. If not, we can address that issue at a later date. This is the right thing to do for this community today, to move forward with the staff recommendation. And I did have a second on that, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Any further discussion? All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
Aye.
Motion carries 4-1. Okay. Let's see. Next item is the right-of-way acquisition 74th Avenue, south of State Road 60, and south of 12th Street. And that's I. Basil and Donna L. Keller, found on pages 316 through 324.
Jim Davis, this is just some additional right-of-way acquisition along 74th Avenue to complete the grid, the north-south grid being every mile, having a north-south road, and east-west roads are a half a mile spacing.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I just have a question. Recently, serving as a value adjustment board, we went kind of head-to-head with the property appraiser, and he was insisting that raw land, was selling for $50,000 an acre, and I think down here more towards the south end, he was down more around $25,000 an acre, and we're offering $70,000. And is there any basis for that, or?
I don't know. I can let Jim answer that.
We've had comparable sales in the area as much as $95,000 an acre. We have a willing seller here. We have a negotiated contract. We've offered
$95,000 an acre for just vacant land, or was there structures involved in those sales?
Well, the big comparable everyone points to is the school board property, which is outside the urban service area. It was a large tract. Usually large tracts go for less money than smaller tracts. But that is a comparable that is just hard to argue if you go to an eminent domain situation. And there have been other 5-acre tracts that have sold, $70,000, $75,000. And my appraisers have looked at comparable sales in the area. And some of those go back, perhaps a year ago when the real estate market was much more aggressive than it is today. I mean, but we've offered other people in this neighborhood the same amount of money, and I think you approved those just a few months ago. The Kellers have sold a couple of other parcels to us, and I think that's what we paid for them.
When you look at this, if I could just, 7 times a 5 acre, that's $350,000, which is actually probably what they're probably buying is a 4.6 acres or 200,000 square feet. So it could be a little bit steep. I don't argue that with you, Commissioner O'Brien. I think really what you look at is basically if we have a willing seller here, and the dragging out of the process and the opportunity to move forward with the project. And we're buying frontage feet. We're not buying an entire parcel. And the frontage feet, the most valuable piece of real estate, is clearly the part that touches the road.
The other is the fact, I think Will had said in the past, you're talking about a third, generally, I guess, around a third more per property if it's not a willing seller, and you have to go to eminent domain or whatever.
And another interesting part is we've negotiated with some people for right-of-way on Powerline Road. In that negotiations, we've had to put back landscape, build them a fence, make it look better than it does. In this instance, we're buying dirt and able to move forward.
Well, somebody going to make a motion?
So I move staff recommendation, Mr. Chairman.
We have a motion. Do we have a second? I'll second the motion. Any further discussion?
You're going to make me maybe quit making motions.
How do you think I feel seconding your motion? We have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Thank you.
Motion carries 5-0. Next is lift station power meter and replacement, and that's on 325, the utility services. Well, this is a tough crowd today.
It was your easy, quick meeting.
Part of the fun. For the record, Eric Olson, Director of Utilities. What we're asking, the Utilities Department is asking, is to replace the power meters at various lift stations. We have been replacing these a little at a time, but we've determined that these particular electric meters are really a hazard. We've actually had one of our employees that were hurt as a result of the shorting out of the system.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Great presentation.
Yeah, very nice
We
job.
just wanted you to have your chance.
You guys warmed it all up.
Approval of work authorization number 2.
We didn't have a vote.
No, we didn't vote. I'm just totally confused today.
That's all right, Commissioner.
All those in favor, we have a motion
Aye.
and a second. Aye. Opposed, like sign. Motion carries 5-0. Next, approval of work authorization number 2007-002 for labor contract for underground utilities for force main relocation at Lateral J Canal on Oslo Road, UCP 2899, found on pages 326 through 329.
Mr. Chairman, I move staff recommendation for that we authorize 2007-002.
Second. We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion carries 5-0. County Attorney, board consideration of a call letter of credit and mitigation to dead oak trees and jungle trail buffer at Island Club Reserve, found on pages 330 and 354.
Mr. Chairman, this situation goes back to May of 2000 when the county cited the Island Club Riverside for some illegal clearing and tree removal. This occurred in the Jungle Trail Buffer Zone, which is a scenic and historic road. As a result of that, Beazer was fined and agreed to reinstall 24-inch diameter live oaks and post a letter of credit to guarantee their maintenance for 5 years. Over the course of that 5 years, there were hurricanes and the trees were destroyed. The provision of the hurricane said that in the event that they were destroyed because of hurricanes, the developer would not be liable. However, the county environmental staff had some inquiries about the condition of the trees prior to the storm, and their investigation seemed to indicate that they were in poor condition before the storm. A year ago, we came to the board with the idea of a staff proposal that had not been accepted by BZER, but I believe it went through the Historic Resource Advisory Committee, and the recommendation was, given the difficulty of the large trees prospering after transplanting, especially given the storm events that we've been suffering more frequently, that in lieu of planting the large trees, we would plant 5 minimum 4-inch live oak trees in the Island Club buffer and 25 4-inch oaks at the Captain Forster Hammock Preserve. BZER, while objecting to that proposal as not being something that had really been presented to them, did extend the letter of credit for an additional year.
You just turned your thing off there.
BZER did extend the letter of credit for an additional year to address the problem, and there has been correspondence, some of which is in your backup and some of which was handed out yesterday, addressing their position that they don't feel responsible. To some extent, we've got our staff saying one thing and their arborists concluding another thing as to the condition of the trees prior to the hurricane, and very little in the way of documentation one way or the other. But we do have representatives here today from BZER, Rebecca Soos from Holland and Knight, and I believe Mr. Kulzecki worked for that firm at one point to do some of the inspections after the hurricanes. We also have our environmental planning staff, Mr. DeBloy and Mr. Oristaglia, who was involved in those incidents. The proposal here today is to authorize the staff to call the letter of credit in the event that the proposal is put forward by our staff last year, a $20,000 mitigation payment so that smaller trees could be planted. It's not in place prior to April 27th. By phone conversations recently and a letter that we received yesterday and passed out to you as additional backup, BZER still takes the position that they're not responsible, but in order to fully and finally settle the matter, they would pay the $25,000 and have the letter of credit released and be released from liability. Each of the people here may wish to address the situation in a little more detail, or you may have more questions on the matter, but our recommendation is to accept the $20,000 settlement, use the money to reestablish the 5 live oaks in the Island Club Riverside Buffer, a jungle trail, with a balance of the fund for plantings at the Captain Forster Preserve.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
I move staff recommendation 1.
Second.
We have a motion second. Well, let me ask, I just want to make sure I understand it, because the letter of credit is $119,250.
That was the total cost to move the 5 24-inch oak trees, and I think it was 125% of the cost.
Okay, so we're accepting, and they've agreed to pay the $20,000.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Any further discussion? We have a motion second. All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Like sign. Motion carried. Next item.
And at this point, we'll be looking for payment of the $20,000 and return of the letter of credit.
And I believe Rebecca says Holland and Knight, Orlando. The agreement that we had discussed with Mr. Collins was, I believe, payment by the 27th of April.
Yes.
And we'll just pay and have the letter of credit released. And can we just communicate with Mr. Collins to make sure that gets...
Yes.
Well, contact me if you have any questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
What? I just wanted to ask her if she was in favor of the boat ramp.
That's our government. Bring in charter government too?
Under Commissioner's items. Request for joint workshop with any River County and interested municipalities to explore obtaining the Green Local Government Designation Standard as awarded by Florida Green Building Coalition, Inc., found on pages 355 through 359.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. After my election, one of the ideas I wanted to address was making Indian River County more of a green, sustainable county. working to that effect, I've asked some folks from the local community. These included representatives from local municipalities, builders, a couple of the folks from the green team, and just anybody interested in a sustainable type community. And we've kind of formed a very informal, non-political committee that we've just have designated as the Indian River County Sustainability Committee. And what we'd like to do is to have a joint workshop with all the municipalities, and we'll have some of the folks from the Green Coalition come and make presentations. And actually, they've even indicated they can provide funds if we want to have food there, or pay for the if we rent the Richardson Center, things like that. So one of the things in our discussion, we also found out that a lot of the municipalities are currently implementing sustainable or green practices, and this would be a good opportunity for all of us to get together, see what everybody's doing, and ultimately I'd like to see if we could get a motion or move forward to applying to be a sustainable community. So with that, today I'm just asking the board to approve organizing a joint workshop, and then the folks that I'm working with will take care of the agenda and move forward with it.
Mr. Chairman, are you asking for an official committee?
No,
down the road?
Yeah, well, and I'd be careful of that. That would
Yes.
subject them to the sunshine law.
Right. No, actually,
down that way.
we are not looking for an official committee, and basically this is just to give us more information about what the Green Coalition, the government program is, and get more information and facts on it.
Oh, I thought you wanted a workshop.
Yes.
That would be a sunshine situation with all the...
Yes, that would be with all the municipalities, so we could
That's
discuss
to explore everything else you're talking
That's
about.
just to explore it.
What Commissioner O'Brien's asking for is basically, it's going to take some staff work. He don't want to allocate staff time if the commission's not willing to look into this, and I think that's really what
But it's going to be a private organization. It's not going to be a...
No. There's two different things. One is just the committee I'm working with to come up with ideas and move it forward. The second is to have a formal workshop where the county and the interested municipalities can get together, hear a presentation on sustainable government and sustainable communities, and then we could take formal action, whether as the county we would like to apply to be designated as a green or sustainable government. The municipalities, they may decide that they want to do their own thing. So the workshop would be a formal workshop because we will have all the municipalities there, but it's strictly to just get more information about the entire green program and the sustainability program.
We'll be having this is just for information, but coming on the agenda, I'm on the Treasure Coast Council of, the Treasure Coast Council of Sustainability for the Treasure Coast, and it's a governor's committee appointed with all the municipalities in the county, and then there's a second phase of this that I'm on, and we will be having a presentation on that, so there might be some overlap on that.
Actually, this is all moving in a lot of areas. A lot of counties and states are doing this. As kind of part of this whole thing, planning and zoning, they're having a workshop on, Stan, is it the 25th? And they're having 4 panels, and one of the panels is dedicated to talking about how to be more sustainable and environmental in your building and design and stuff. And a lot of this boils down to conserving resources. A lot of these ideas that are in the documentation is how to conserve energy, how to conserve water and resources.
And that's all in this 18-month report that we've put out.
And this is just a state program where it's very flexible. You can meet the standard by a lot of different avenues, and it just helps you be cheaper and better in the long run. So,
Mr. Chairman. Commissioner O'Brien, you've made a motion to...
Just request a joint workshop, and as written here, yeah.
Seconded.
Commissioner Bryan, good work on
I
this.
just wouldn't want to have, I don't mean a workshop at all, but would not want to have a committee on this.
That's not what you're asking for.
No, I'm not asking to approve.
Merely going to have A workshop.
Asking to approve
Right, and this
a
will, the
county committee.
Sustainable Treasure Coast will be giving a presentation on our thing, and it's on all the issues you've talked about.
And I think Commissioner
And if they would like
Bryan,
to dovetail with this, that'd be great.
So seconded.
I think Commissioner Brown wants to be a liaison, utilize staff because of the new building codes and that, and I think it's a big movement in the state and a very important one.
and this still leaves him with his one more allocation of workshops, because he's about used them all between this and charter.
We
We are now.
have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion carries 5-0.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Under Emergency Services,
Mr. Chairman, do we need to take a closed caption break?
well, we got two more items. We can be done in about 3 minutes if you're all
I just wanted to
quick.
remind you.
A collective bargaining agreement between Indian River County and the IAFF memorandum dated April 9th, found on pages 360, 445.
I believe in your packet was the final edition of the fire contract. I want to thank the IFF for professional negotiations, heated at some times, but professional nonetheless. I'll name their officers if you don't mind. I know we're short on time. The President, Lieutenant Wayne Chasney, Vice President, Driver Engineer Rick Ridge, Secretary Treasurer, Lieutenant Medic Mark Daniels, and also in the room was a big part of negotiations was Captain Medic Joe Ehrman. I'd also like to thank my staff member Colleen Peterson for taking copious notes, Michael Zito, Deputy Administrator, John King, and I'd be remiss without mentioning Tony Hood up in budget, who helped us crunch numbers and prepare that type of information for the negotiations. I think we've come up with a pretty fair collective bargaining agreement here. If you notice on the last page, we got to start negotiating in 30 days for the next one. So unless you have specific questions, I'll leave it to your discussion. I have some data if you're looking for a legislative style to see what was changed and what's underlined, what's new language, what's been taken out. We could go through that, but we talked about everything at the executive session, and basically this contract is what we discussed at executive session.
Do you have any questions, Mr. Sexton? Mr. Ehrman?
I would just like to second what Mr. Sexton said. It was, negotiations were very professional and everything went well. Just to make the remark that this is a good start. It's brought the former union into one union. The fire department is one now, and now we have I think Mr. Sexton would agree, we have a long road to hoe now to get everything in order and get our housekeeping done and straighten out some issues that'll need to be straightened out in the general operations of the department itself. But we're pleased with this. Our members overwhelmingly supported this, and we're ready to move on and go to bigger and better things.
Great. Thank you. Any questions, Commissioners? If not,
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Like sign. Motion carries.
Thank you.
March
Thank you.
status report, emergency services found on pages 446 through 458.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Like sign, opposed. Motion carries 5-0, and we're adjourned.